Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final season of America. I am your host, Arden Hart, today, here to take all your questions about anything and everything trans-related as we watch the world burn down around us. With me, of course, is the lovely, as always, Josie Caballero. Hey, Josie.
Hi, how is everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing good, despite all of the wild chaos that goes on in our world right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm feeling great. I'm going to be honest. Aside from my own, personal mental health stuff, the last few weeks have been really doom and gloom in the political landscape, and every trans person I talk to is like, I'm partying this summer because it might be the last summer I get to party. And it's like, I genuinely don't think that things are going to be the worst that they could possibly be right away, even if Trump wins. But I am feeling that very deeply with all of my queer family, and so it's rough out there. But we're gonna have a good show today. We're gonna have some conversations, and hopefully everyone will be respectful, and we'll see how it goes. What's new with you, Josie?
Well, I'm finally back to work. I got like a week off after Pride, which was nice. So therefore I got my other job stuff that I had to do. I have
Right.
too much to do. But I got a little bit of a lighter load to help balance out that beam, of different things that I am up to. But no, it's been pretty wild. I've had a lot of conversations with political leaders across, the country, and it's been a lot of oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? What are your thoughts? And it's just been a lot of, we're just gonna have to wait and see. And I hate that. It's like I've lost so much sleep and anxiety from it. And it's
Yeah.
just like, because it's like, even though I'm very connected to the people who make a lot of decisions, even they don't have a lot of power either. So I'm just kind of just like sitting on my hands, just kind of waiting to see what happens and just giving my opinion. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's honestly, I'll be straight up when I'm looking down the barrel of showing up for this show, I'm like, man, given everything going on, my motivation to convince some cis person that trans women aren't going to assault their wife in the bathroom is really non-existent. I'm like, we're fighting for the basics here right now, and so it's a little exhausting, but I do still think the show is important, and the things we do are,
Oh
those
yeah.
conversations are impactful. So obviously I'm showing up here because it matters to me. But yeah, I'll be straight up. It's been real negative in my head space lately about everything. So hopefully I won't impart too much of that onto the audience, because I want you guys to feel motivated to, be involved, and to be really embracing love in your community and with your loved ones right now, because I think we need that big time.
Yeah, I'm still the optimistic person I am. I still see pathways to victory.
Mhm.
But it's like no matter what scenario, it's just going to be a hard road. That's all.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
it's not over by any means. So it's just, we just need to make sure that whatever happens, that we strategize and do the right things, because we have
Yes.
to be on our A game, because fascism never sleeps.
Yeah. uh I've just been listening nonstop to Chapel Roan in my free time to carry me through the yes, just Pink Pony Club my way to dissociation from the bad parts. So anyway, we have some polls to get to from last week. A poll to get to from last week. Last week's
Yes.
poll reads: Can POTUS simultaneously claim to be an LGBTQ plus ally and oppose evidence-based gender affirming surgeries for minors? With 7,000 votes, 69% of you said no, and 31% said yes. And I'll tell you, I went through the comments, and the majority of the yes responses were people saying, I mean, he can claim to be an ally, but whether or not it means he is a different story. And so I think even a good chunk of those yeses are probably kind of on our side for the fundamental part of the question, which is to say that, the White House making that statement was a gaffe. And uh, uh, there's a part of me that fears it's a little bit of the UKization of our politics, where Democrats are like, oh, we should appeal to the anti-trans people because that'll get more people voting Democrat or something. But I do feel like it was probably more of just a hiccup or like a random White House official in an email, and not like a serious statement or anything. It shouldn't be granted that level of elevation, but it is concerning. Definitely, I think trans people have
Yeah.
a right to be nervous when we hear stuff like that. But I don't know, Josie, what are your thoughts? I know you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the UK can't stop colonizing us for like 2 seconds.
Right.
Anyways, I actually have some news about this. So, apparently, what ended up happening with this whole thing about the statement that was made that was completely against minors getting surgeries in any case, there was a little bit of a minor panic through all of the leadership within the Democratic Party and the actual the Democratic Party like queer leaders, and then also the queer leaders inside of the Biden campaign, and it kind of went into a frenzy. So I was able to communicate with the Biden campaign because they're like, "Oh my God, dear God, what do we do? This is so effed. This is not what we wanted." And so eventually, what ended up happening was the queer leaders around the country, from HRC, Advocates for Trans Equality, and like Equality PAC and others, actually wrote a letter to the Biden administration to say, "Hey, what the f? Like, what is going on right now?" And then the White House then put out a clarifying statement that was within this week before this poll, before this
Okay.
show. So a clarifying statement came out saying that the decisions for gender affirming care, no matter what it is, should be between the doctors and the parents, and politicians should not be meddling in this. They
Mm-hmm.
also went on to say that they are not going to do any form of executive action to prevent that care from actually happening at all. And lastly, they actually put out a statement saying that they are completely against any Supreme Court decision based on the Tennessee case that is going to be heard at the Supreme Court, which it would ban gender affirming care for minors across the board. So, yeah, it seems like it was a little bit of a gaffe. It seems like the White House was a little head of their skis on this one, made
Yeah.
a bad statement, pissed off a lot of the queer community, and they had to put out that clarifying statement. And what that also shows me is that the White House is listening to the fact that they need queer votes to win this election. They cannot lose one effing vote. And because they screwed up, they were afraid they were going to get endorsements pulled. They were afraid that people weren't going to vote for them anymore. So they had to put out that statement. So we did
Yeah,
something.
they should be afraid of that kind of thing. I think it's especially looking down the barrel of Project 2025 and what that spells out for trans people. We are living in a time where everything feels very it in flux, and I think to right now is when we need that like really strong support from the leadership. And I get it. I think there's a tendency, because the types of surgeries that are done on minors are like there's a different frequency of what kind of procedures are done, right? You're generally talking about like top surgery for AFAB individuals or something like that, because that matters for their health. There are other procedures that happen for sure, and it's all done on a case by case basis where a doctor has decided this seems to be the best course of action for this individual's well-being. And that totally makes sense. There's a fly buzzing around. That totally makes sense. There's gonna be that kind of thing that happens. But I think there's a tendency to see the conservative propaganda of, they're giving genital surgery to 7-year-olds, and to be like, whoa, we're against all of that kind of stuff, and not realizing that you're lumping in also completely medically justified procedures for some individuals. So yeah.
And what also it shows me as well is how important it is to have an administration that actually listens to us.
Mm,
Because if it was a Republican administration, then we wouldn't have been heard at all. We would have been iced out. There would have been no
yeah.
way for us to actually form and change the narrative. And so for me, that means something. right? That matters. The fact that they actually were like, oh no, what do we do? And they actually asked the queer community what to do, and they actually listened.
Yeah.
It means something, and that's why our votes matter, right? And that's why they know that we're voters. They know that they need us to win elections, so they better effing listen to us or they're going to lose.
Yeah.
That's the power of our vote.
Yeah, absolutely. Every single vote matters right now. And this kind of relates to, our coming up question, but I think it is important to hone in on that whether or not Biden stays in the race. I'm voting for blue no matter who right now, because what is associated with the Trump win is so grim and dark for trans people. And I'm not saying that a Democrat win is the best thing for the world or that I am so
Right.
pro Democrat. I'm saying that what the alternative is, the only alternative is so bleak for us that I don't see how anyone could justify any other position. But that leads us into this week's poll, which is,
Yeah.
will you be more likely to vote if Biden drops out of the race? So I did see some preliminary responses to this, which already were kind of falling into that camp of what I was just saying, which is I'm going to vote for whoever is the Dem on the ticket, no matter who it is, whether it's, Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. Doesn't matter. It's not Trump. That's who I'm voting for, which is, I love to see that. So I don't think it should necessarily impact whether or not you vote, but I do know there is a large contingency of people who are very anti-Biden, and they think that not voting somehow absolves them of the consequences of the election. And so I would say that it doesn't, and that and so if we can take an action, we ought to. But I do understand, and don't get me wrong, I'm not excited about Biden. The whole time I was watching the presidential debate, I haven't been on since the debate, the only thing I was thinking is this is a disaster. He is fumbling so hard. He's misrepresenting his own position on abortion. He's doing a terrible job. It's not lost on me. But the problem is, I would vote for a sack of rice over Donald J. Trump. And so, if Joe Biden is effectively a sack of rice by the election time, and that's who we have, that's who I'm rolling with. But
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, yes. I've been watching so much analysis from every corner, every angle, from people at the top of the food chain, from the campaign to DNC, to like people who are just like not bought in on politics at all, to people who are super bought in and punditry. And one thing that really resonated with me is the idea that people have been saying, well, the poll numbers really didn't change very much from the post debate to pre debate or after debate. And so what we can glean off of that means that a lot of people have already made their decision, because 70% of Americans feel that age is the biggest issue with Biden. So a lot of people have already made up their minds, and what happened at that debate only solidified people into that concern bucket. And so for me, it's like one of those things where if age is the biggest issue that voters have, the only way to solve that is to get a younger person. And then we can actually start the conversation again. And, no matter, like you said, no matter what happens, we're going to fight. I'm planning to spend a couple weeks in Michigan to campaigning, for example, trying to be a surrogate, to try to get people out. But at the end of the day, it's like the voters have been very clear about this for a long time. And wouldn't it be amazing if we were the party that listened, right? Like, the Republicans are already angry about Trump, right? They don't like that they have to vote for Trump, a lot of them, but they had no choice. That's the way their primaries landed. But could you imagine how the voters in the Democratic side would feel if they actually listened and said, okay, this is your biggest concern, we'll solve it.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I was thinking about actually writing an article about this. But essentially, in the United States, we mythologize, right? We mythologize George Washington stepping away from power, right? 2 terms and he was done. And we consider him like the founding father of our country, the hero of all heroes that stepped away from being a ruler and a king, right? It's like, doesn't Biden want to be compared to the great George Washington, of like the man who said, okay, I listen, I do not need to rule to the day I die? It plays well with American mythology. And so it's like, protect your legacy. Protect your legacy as the most effective one-term president in American history, and said, I'm done because I did my job. That narrative will ring through generations. But for some reason, Biden thinks that he needs to try to step in it to try to finish this off, when he could be the hero of all heroes. Like, I would salute him if that happened. I will put a little picture on my wall saying one of the greatest presidents in history. But if he doesn't step away, I'm going to be real mad.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of mixed cases for this. I know Heritage Foundation is trying to. I don't think they have a strong case, but they're trying to prep some lawsuits in case Biden does step down, to try to challenge the ability to take Biden off the ticket. But the DNC doesn't formally nominate their candidate yet, so I don't know how much they could really do there.
So, yeah, it's not very likely. And also, if it is Harris, which seems to be the most likely choice, because this is the way conventions are. So a lot of the punditry doesn't talk about this. I was a DNC delegate twice for 2 presidential cycles previous to this one. And the way delegates are chosen are very specific to the way the campaign works. So first off, all the delegates have already been selected, and they're all Biden delegates. So they are like true blue Biden delegates. I'm Bernie. Biden delegates. They will do whatever Biden says, because that's how they select it. The campaign across the country handpicked a lot of these delegates to be selected. So there is no real ability to do a contested convention that isn't like 90% Biden brained. So most likely any type of contested convention will be whoever Biden says do the pick, which will be Harris. So what that also means is that Harris will be able to already be in on all the primary ballots, will automatically be slated in, and also legally Harris will be able to just become the principal of the campaign, the Biden campaign, because she's already there, meaning all the money, the billions or nearly $1 billion that has already been raised for Biden, will slot over and stay with Harris, while all other candidates would have to essentially re-raise all that money. And that to me is a very scary prospect. So for me, it's like, if we're probably going to be stuck with Harris, and we need to be okay with that, because at the end of the day, Harris is a woman that will be able to stand on abortion and say, look, I'm going to be the champion against abortion, obviously. And that is the biggest issue in this campaign cycle. And she can be like, I'm not 81. And those 2 things alone will be able to win the American public over. That's my belief. That's what I think the best strategy is. And I think that's the most likely scenario if Biden decides to see a better conscience.
I'm not particularly convinced that Biden will step down, but if he does, I don't know. Like I said, I support whoever isn't Trump, and so if Biden steps down, I'll support whoever. I don't know if it's the right move yet.
It's 50-50 to me.
Yeah, it feels very. I was saying last night to Jimmy and Matt, I was more like a 30% on the likelihood of it even happening at all, and probably around there of it being a good idea. But I know they're both more of like 50, and I feel like I'm with every day. I'm a kind of a different place. It's just
that's how
it's really hard
is.
to know. We've just as the saying has been said for the last 4 years, I'm really fucking sick of living in unprecedented times. But anyway, if you want to get involved with that poll, go check it out on our community tab. We would be happy to hear your responses, and we'll talk about those results next week. We do have some announcements, but I think we should take a call first. Just kind of jump into it, and then we'll hit announcements after. So why don't we talk to... Oh, interesting. We're going to talk to Lori. Her in West Virginia. Lori... You are live on Transatlantic. What's going on?
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. This is very, very uncomfortable for me, okay? But
Sure.
talking to a friend of mine a few weeks ago, who is no longer my friend. We were talking about a lot of different things, and the LGBTQIA community came up, and we talked about sports. We just talked about a lot of stuff. And then she said, Lori, do you know what the plus stands for in LGBTQIA plus? And I said, yeah, it's just like LGBTQIA and others. And she said, no, it stands for NAMBLA. And
no,
she was laughing as she was saying it. And my temperature is rising right now just thinking about it. And now she really loves Trump. She is a Christian. She believes every conspiracy theory out there.
Yeah.
So is this something I've never heard this before? Is this something that conspiracy theorists are hearing out there?
It's 100% a conspiracy theory. For those who don't know, NAMBLA is the North American Man-Boy Love Association.
Yeah.
It's a like gay pederast. I think even gay is problematic to use there because when I was getting my psychology degree in abnormal psych class, we talked about how the majority of people who commit assault on children are in fact not gay. They would typically describe themselves as heterosexual, but it's about a power dynamic that they're attracted to. It's not the gender of the individual that's really the feature there. So even calling it gay, I think is highly problematic. But no, this is purely a conspiracy theory. It's a tale as old as time to associate LGBT people with pedophilia and pederasty, and it is just an attempt to discredit and to make LGBT people look like we are perverse degenerates. It's a violation of consent. As far as I know, LGBT people are overwhelmingly far more in favor of like informed, enthusiastic consent models, and a child cannot give informed, enthusiastic consent to anything with an adult. And the fact that there are two men or a man and a boy together does not make it in any way a part of the LGBT community.
Right. And it really does come from a very way to demonize the queer community. And like Arden said, queer communities are more likely to push consent and teaching consent to the youngest age possible. Like, even when we are teaching, kindergartners or, about like, these are body parts. You can't let people touch you if you don't want to be touched, right? That type of stuff where it's just like being able to understand that it's okay to have personal space is actually something that we try to teach, while the conservative end of the spectrum doesn't like teaching consent at any age, right? And so right off the bat, it's like it doesn't compute, and it really is a tale as old as time of like, please think of the children, please protect the children. But I will tell you right now that the queer community does not accept or respect or people who are involved with child predation. Like, that's just pure and simple, and that's not what the plus stands for. You are more in line with the accuracy of what the plus stands for.
Yeah, I want to give you a chance to respond, Lori, but I also want to add, it's important to note that the people who are regularly defending relationships with children are overwhelmingly conservatives. The few states who have outlawed child marriage are blue states. And whenever we see laws coming up in purple and red states to outlaw child marriage, who are the people saying, no, this is bad, we need to keep this law? Conservatives and Republicans. Mm-hmm. Trump's religious advisor for his entire term has been credibly accused of assaulting a 12-year-old. And the current argument that they used in court, I saw this on a national news article the other day, was that she started it. So the notion that a 12-year-old can initiate consensual sex with an adult is absurd and a purely conservative fiction. This is nothing. Conservatives have a problem where everything that they do and they feel, they project onto everyone else and accuse of everyone else. So the incessant there's a great list compiled, I think, by Socked on Left on Twitter, which is the like compilation of the pedocon theory, which is the notion that every conservative who accuses other people of being groomers has like a history of sexual impropriety with children themselves. Obviously not every single person, it's a generalization to say that, but there is a great compilation of examples of that happening from elected representatives and you know, Congress members and things like that, and law enforcement, people of positions of power within the state. It is an attempt to make us look like degenerates so they can justify committing the worst atrocities towards us.
Yeah, it's I agree there. I agree there. I mean, every time you hear about all these child rapes out there, it's you know, it's not somebody from the queer community. It's somebody that's in some kind of power. It's a cop. It's a pastor. It's ridiculous. But that just really got me when she said that, and I'm like, no, and she was serious, and I'm like, you know, hey, I'm not voting for Trump, so therefore I'm a communist. So if she wants to call me again or send me a text, I'm going to say, well, you don't want the FBI hearing your phone calls and knowing that you're talking to a fucking communist, do you? Because it's like everything out of her mouth is a conspiracy theory, and I'm over it. I am stressed enough as it is. I am so stressed over November because
me too.
Yeah, I'm going to be the first one that they're going to want to get rid of. I'm 67. I'm on Social Security. I'm disabled. They're going to get rid of me in a heartbeat, and I'm scared to fucking death.
I feel you, Lori. We got to get out and vote to make sure that doesn't happen, because I feel you, and
yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I am. I'm going to be one, little drop of blue water in the wave, hopefully, and
that's right.
And hopefully it doesn't come to pass. Hopefully it doesn't come to pass, because I have thoughts in my head that aren't good and aren't healthy, and I can't tell anybody because you know how that goes. But
sure. I feel you 100%.
Definitely understand.
You are not alone in that, Lori. Yeah. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate the chance to dispel this regular, unfortunately common, absurd
and Lori.
Myth.
Yeah, and Lori, you do know that in West Virginia there's a trans woman who is elected. And for a city council, her name is Rosemary Ketchum, an incredible person. So even in West Virginia, there are trans representatives at the city level.
Yeah, see, this is my first time voting in West Virginia, because I only lived here like 2 years, and I'm from Tennessee originally, and actually I'm really kind of glad I'm out of that state, but
Sure.
Maybe the next time
there's her name is Ketchum.
We'll see.
She's a Pokemon master. Iconic.
I know. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Lori. I appreciate it. Yeah. If you need to call back and have us help you dispel any other myths, we're happy to help. But thank you for calling in. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate you both.
Thank
you.
No
worries. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah. I literally. When I met Rosemary, I was like, she was like, Ketchum. And I'm like, Ketchum? Like Ash Ketchum? And she was like, exactly. I was like, okay, that's pretty awesome.
She's probably also like everyone my whole life has done that. But there's a great account called Delicious Alex, or her name is Alex Jameson on Instagram. She used to be married to the guy who was in the Super Size Me documentary, but she does a lot of like pro-choice advocacy, and one of the things that she does, a series that she does, is the hashtag not trans, hashtag not a drag queen series, where she'll go over recent times where high-profile, powerful people have been credibly accused of some sort of like child impropriety thing, and she does it like once a week. So like that's how frequently these things are happening. One of the ones she did recently was some member of a police force in some state, I don't know which one, who was accessing this stuff through Wi-Fi at work. Like, it's crazy. But Real quick before we take the next caller, I do want to hit our announcements for the upcoming week. So do remember that you can support us over on Patreon, patreon.com/calltheline. Also, I'm typing announcements into the Google search tab, not the actual schedule for the announcements, because my brain has limited power. Okay, so this Sunday on the Sunday show at 2 o'clock will be Matt Dillahunty and Aron Adair. And the After Dark show will be Jimmy Snow and Paulogia. So if you want to talk about religion or theism or any of those kind of related topics, that is the place where you can call in and do that. Monday on Skep Talk will be John Gleason with Aron Ra. Next Tuesday on Chewed Gum will be Eve and Alyssa doing, the OG team. Next Wednesday on the Hang Up will be Matt Dillahunty with Andrew Seidel. So that's very exciting. We love having Andrew Seidel on, especially, with AOC filing the articles of impeachment against Alito and Thomas, and the special counsel investigation into Clarence Thomas, having a highly connected, highly informed, our go-to atheist secular lawyer guy on the case, defending our secular liberties. So definitely check that episode out. And then next week, I think it's going to be Josie and Luxander, right? Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Wait. Yes.
So that's our show.
I won't be on the week after the next.
Right. I know Josie's been
I'll be
doing
in
all the
Comic-Con.
work carrying this show.
I love it though.
I appreciate it.
I
It's
do
really
love
been
it.
helpful because I've needed a break. I know a lot of you guys have been asking where Katy is. I'm not going to give her whole thing. She's needed a break, and so she's taking the break, and that's totally cool. I completely get it, especially considering what the UK is going through. I also been feeling like I needed a break, and so having Luxander and Josie on, I really appreciate, especially because, Josie and I disagreed last time we were here. I know Luxander has some disagreements with both Josie and I on, electoralism and stuff, and I like that. In spite of that, our mission here is cohesive and it operates so well, and I appreciate both of y'all, all of y'all, and obviously Dr. Ben, who had a birthday this past weekend, by the way.
All right.
I
missed that.
Let's bring in Robin in the UK. Sorry, I'm just bringing them in the order they've come in. I'm not actually reading the things.
Go for it.
Robin, pronouns are he, him in the UK. Robin, you are live on the line. Hit us with it. What's going on?
Hi, good to talk. So, I guess I wanted to talk about these past few weeks, and Josie might regret this coming up again, but she's had some really great conversations with a person, I can't remember his name, around the difference of sex and gender. And it's been really good to listen to. I'm not normally someone who defines trans topics around sex and gender, but I found, Josie, your case to be really convincing, and I think we saw that with the person. You started getting him to understand a lot of the issues and things. I guess one of the things I wanted to ask, though, was that I've heard some other trans people who aren't really fond of that distinction and feels it can cause some confusion. Sometimes that's not really how people tend to think of sex and gender, and I think part of it might be to do with countries as well. So in the UK, we have a big gender critical movement, which is maybe a bit distinct to how transphobes in the US operate. And one of the things they do is a very faux politeness, and they'll be, oh, of course we understand that your gender is female, but we're just saying because your sex is male, we're going to treat you as a man, and you should use male spaces and things like that. So yeah, I guess I just thought it'd be interesting to hear your thought on that side.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different things to kind of talk about here. I think we can identify that sex and gender are completely different constructs, but it also doesn't mean that they're not related in some way, right? Obviously the majority of people are cisgender, so there is some sort of relationship between sex and gender. It's just the fact that they're not the exact same thing. We're talking about two different mechanisms, even if they are maybe overlapping significantly. I think some of the resistance to the, I'm a woman in my gender but male as sex, is kind of like you were talking about, is because people weaponize that in that particular way, and people are resistant to that. And I know there are some trans people who feel that, and I understand why, a lot of the medical transition steps that we take do fundamentally change your sex characteristics. And so a lot of them feel that I have functionally changed my sex, and therefore it makes more sense to call me female. And I think there's a really good case for that. I personally struggle to say that I'm like female, but I also feel like calling me male doesn't seem to make any sense either, because I have changed most of my biology, you know, to a sufficient point where like probably my medical indications are going to be more in line with most female medical indications for anything that's like sex specific. So there's a lot of different reasons why it is the case. Personally, I think, you know, it's kind of a it takes all types kind of a situation, where I think it's good that people are using different methods to address these concerns, because it kind of helps move everyone in the right direction. But I don't know, Josie, what do you think?
Yeah, and I appreciate you, Robin, for acknowledging my argumentation on this point. And Arden's absolutely right about how, you know, they're just because they are separate topics or separate concepts and how they are applied in society doesn't mean that they're linked. For example, I myself and Arden are both trans women because we are not, our gender doesn't align with our sex. So even the fact of us calling trans shows there's an association between the gender concept and sex concept of like putting those two things together. Now to expound upon what Arden is talking about some trans people feeling that they've gone through medical transition steps, so therefore they've changed sex sexual markers, such as, you know, like secondary characteristics, right, which is, you know, breast or beard or, you know, those type of things, softer skin, fat distribution, surgeries, right, like all of these things can change the way that sex can appear in the physical form of that. Now, the reason I like to delineate the two more, as, you know, a person, I like to say, as a professional trans, uh, in tongue-in-cheek, of course, I work in trans advocacy. I actually work on expansion of civil rights for trans people across the board. So the reason that I choose to actually delineate the two more distinctly is because it helps all trans people, because all trans people are on different journeys in their lives. So some people may not want those medical interventions, but that doesn't change the fact that they are women, they are men, or non-binary in the way that they identify as a gender identity. So when you put the two in buckets by themselves, it allows more inclusivity within the law, right? Within the legal construct. Because if you put those things too close together within a legal construct, you get laws such in certain states in the United States, you cannot change your birth certificate until you have bottom surgery, for example, right? Which is an accessibility issue, right? So therefore, they use that as an excuse, as like a Venn diagram, and they try to say, we will be we will believe trans people are trans within this sliver of a margin of folks that choose to get a specific procedure done to their bodies, even if that trans person may not want those procedures, right? I know many trans women, for example, that have medically transitioned all the way across the board and just didn't want to have bottom surgery, or they don't have access to bottom surgery, but that doesn't take their womanhood away, and it doesn't and it shouldn't restrict them from being able to access the category of woman in society, right? Like, because they haven't received this very intimate procedure, right? And so that's why I choose to speak the way that I do. And I encourage all trans people to try to think about it in those contexts and terms, because on a personal nature, if somebody goes through all the transition steps that they feel comfortable, that happen to be bottom surgery, medical transition, social name, all of that, more power to them. But I tell them to be careful to make it seem like they're the good trans in society because they chose all of these specific steps, which gatekeep other trans people who may not want those procedures for themselves. So that can be weaponized, right? And there's also trans people that do weaponize their privilege and their accessibility to these surgeries to say, I'm the good trans, listen to me, I'm not like those other trans people, right? And that happens a lot as well. So does that explain why I use that distinction more broadly versus kind of conflating the two?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and you brought up some really good points that I hadn't thought of, especially that point around people who maybe don't even want some of the surgeries or procedures. I think my takeaway message is sort of thinking around just acknowledging that what Arden was saying around it takes lots of people will have lots of different views on it. I guess why I've was thinking about this as I'm putting together some training on the topic for work, and I'm very conscious that a lot of times if you say something, people will latch onto that definition for dear life, and then the second someone says, "Oh, actually, I think this," they'll either go, "No, you're wrong. I attended this training and it said that," or they say, "Oh, that training was useless. This is wrong," and it's really hard to get people to just acknowledge that there's lots of different ways of thinking about it. But yeah,
exactly.
That
and
really
the best way that
time.
I can put that together, is it happens in cisgendered spaces as well, where men say you have to like trucks to truly be manly, right? And then there's another man that says, no, that's actually not manly at all. It's actually how you treat women with respect is more manly, right? And and there's people who say the opposite, right? So it's understanding that we're all human, and no matter where you fall on the gender spectrum, if you're trans or not trans, we're all going to have our own opinions of ourselves and what we feel is right. So the way that I look at it is try to go with the broadest definitions possible to make sure you include as many humans as possible, right? The more narrow you get, the more harm can be caused, even in a cisgendered space.
That's great. Thanks very much.
Cool. Thanks, Robin.
Absolutely.
I appreciate the question.
Thank you.
All right. Have a nice day. I was assuming I was going to get one more word in.
Yeah.
That's all right.
No, it's all good. No.
All right. We're just going to keep rolling. I saw somebody being like, I'm trying to call in, but it's not working. Our lines are full currently. And
yeah.
So there's only one.
You want to call in.
Yeah, we're only one short of the max lines and somebody's trying to connect. So I might actually close the lines because it's going to take a while to get through 6 calls, and that would be a full show. So
I only see 4 calls available.
Oh, I'm seeing 5
am I slow?
currently. It's a Phoenix or call-in studio is weird, and because I have 2 call-in studios up, and it takes time to update. But okay,
I see 5 now.
Let's see.
Yeah, sorry, person, if you're trying to call in. Was the call a spicy call? Because if it was a spicy call,
they said they wanted to debate the host, so I'm not sure exactly.
Oh, but I like debating the host.
I know, right?
Debate me.
Their name is We Beat Medicaid, Jack. So I'm gonna guess they're maybe hardline anti-Biden or something. But I don't know. I have no idea. I'll leave one line open if you want to try to call in. We Beat Medicaid, Jack.
If it's that person. If it's that person, call in. If you're not that person, don't call in. There we go. And
otherwise, we've got full lines. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk to Mark in Poland. I think this one is the only one that looks potentially spicy, and it doesn't even really sound spicy. So, yeah, we're going to talk to Mark in Poland. Yeah. You are live on the line. Give us your question. What's going on?
Hello. So I was wondering what is the definition of the woman, and I know that many people are raising this point as gacha, but I really just want to know it because to me, it can be one of 2 ways. It either can be adult female, which is according to Wikipedia how it is, or it can be kinda cultural, like you can be woman if you are, if you say you are a woman or something like that. But if you dress like woman, you try to look like woman. But in this second scenario, it's kinda against the feminists, what they were trying to achieve, because feminists were trying to say that no matter how you dress, like you can wear pants, you can have short hair, you cannot look like a woman, but you are still a woman. And if you go with the second definition, you kinda can't have it both ways. You can you either act as a woman or you don't. So I wouldn't agree with it, and I want to know your stance in it.
Yeah. So my position is that personally, I don't find definitions that important. I think adult human female is fine, but also I would probably rearrange that to adult female human, not adult human female.
Yeah.
But I don't really think that's a problem. But we have to talk about like what each of those words mean and acknowledge that like every definition has exceptions. Like when we talk about the definition of a mother, right? Generally speaking, we're talking about a biological concept, the person who, contributed the large immobile gamete to their offspring. But when we actually look at who's included in mother culturally, it's stepmoms, it's your aunt, it's the lady down the street, it's the woman who ran the adoption center, it's any like female-ish figure who happened to contribute to your upbringing can often be culturally viewed as a woman. So adult female human is acceptable to me because I think there are valid arguments for trans people maybe being included under female. And I also think it's just important to note that every definition is going to fail to include everyone who ought to be under the definition and fail to exclude everyone who shouldn't be in the definition. Like that's just the nature of language is messy, and set theory it's like problematic. There are paradoxes within set theory for this exact reason. So I think it's adult human female or adult female human is fine. But honestly, I feel like wrestling over definitions is so silly because it has this notion of definitions as like prescriptive, that definitions like what the definition is what the facts are. And it's like, no, definitions are descriptions of how words are used. And so what the definition of a woman is doesn't really matter in any sense for like who is treated or who receives sexism from men in their society. The definition of woman doesn't determine who can go to the women's bathroom at the event center and not have anyone confront them on it. Like the definition of woman is really irrelevant other than understanding what we mean when we're talking. And so I do find the endless like what really is a woman to be kind of a like I don't care. If I'm a man to you, I genuinely don't care. As long as you're not impeding my right to have access to healthcare and to have access to like a job and stuff free from discrimination. I don't really care what bucket you personally put me in, and not you, Mark. I mean, like the general you. But Josie, you want to hop in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And Mark, like I do co-sign everything that Arden says as well. And really, it comes down to the idea again about if you look at a definition of many words, there will be different definitions on how you use those words. So for example, like if you are like, for example, there's a lot of people who use women's rights as like women deserve abortions, right? And then people are like meaning like women, or they're meaning people with the ability of getting pregnant. And again, that usage is not accurate. There's better ways to use that word, but they are using it in a sex distinction at that moment. Although when we also use woman as in the gender sense, right? Because you would say, what are genders that exist? It would be like, well, there's women, there are men, there are non-binary people, right? A gender is a social construction that we have put in society to say, okay, these are the buckets that we put humans into that are completely devoid of the sex of a person. So really, again, I will use the term this way, and this is the way that I usually like to use it. And I used it on a couple calls before, but I'll use it again because I think it's a decent one. And I'll ask you, Mark, is a black woman, a blonde-headed woman, a trans woman, and a cis woman, meaning a woman that is not trans, are they all a type of woman?
I'm not sure about it. I mean, I'm fine with acting as if trans woman is a woman, as acting as it. but to me
Right,
it is important to have some kind of definitions. Like and I'm same with the mother. Like if you born someone and you're female, then you are a mother. But if you are just raising someone, then you are not really a mother. But I think people should behave as if you are a mother. That's my position, and that's same position with women to me.
Okay, great. And so one of the things that was important there is the fact that in society at large, a lot of people, most of society would say, yeah, those are all type of women, right? And that kind of describes the fact that women is a very broad category when you're taking a look at the way the world uses it, right? And so when you go through the world, right, and you see a person, right, and they are, living in the social construction of woman, you don't have to go up to them and tap their genitals to figure out if they're a woman or a man, right? You would be like, oh, that's a person, right? That is a woman, right? Does that make sense too? Like the idea that we use words regardless of the specificity that some people want to use it, right? Because there are people who use woman in the sense of like you're a woman or a man, right? And you have a penis and you don't, right? But in reality, that doesn't actually work out when in practice, right? Because there's a lot of people that walk around in the world that you would not even know they're trans, that are living their lives as women, feel and are women, and you would have no idea until you actually went and touched that person's genitals. So that's why the word can be more applied more generally, because there is no way to like have a context where we're all walking naked around the world and we use that as the identifier rather than the person's presentation in a lot of cases. Does that make sense, Mark, or am I muddling it up a little bit?
Yes, I would generally agree with it, but there is one topic in which I would say that it is important to stick to a definition, because you have like women's sports, and according to my knowledge, average woman and average men are simply built different, and at top level you can't have women compete with men, because in many sports there will be sports where men are better and women will simply have no chance, and there might be sports when
I wanna just interrupt you really quick. You said average man and average woman, right? That to me sounds like you were talking about like the average cis man and the average cis woman, meaning that they're not trans. Would you say that there is a complete difference between a trans woman and a man, for example? Like look at Arden and I, right? We're both trans women.
I'm your typical man.
Saying that? Yeah, are we your average man, or or are we more compared to women in that reality?
I just want to say something. In Poland, we don't really have the distinction between sex and gender. We don't have a different word for gender, so I might sometimes mix it up. So what I meant was female and male.
Yeah, so I think, Mark, what Josie's trying to hit on is that this is something that research has been trying to address in more recent developments, which is it's a flawed assumption to assume that because trans women are assigned male at birth and because cis men are assigned male at birth, that the data that we have for cis men also applies to trans women. And actually, a lot of the data that were the newer data, and admittedly, it's not great data, but it is the only data that we have that actually compares trans women and cis women to trans men and cis men as all separate categories, is actually showing that trans women have a do not have any kind of advantage and actually perform worse on a lot of athletic measures than cis women. So I hear what you're saying, and I absolutely, as I've said many times on this show, I support evidence-based guidelines that promote fairness with maximum inclusivity in mind. But it's a mistake to assume that because trans women are assigned male at birth, that we're going to perform similarly to cis men on athletic measures.
Okay, if that's the truth, then I'm not sure about it. I mean,
sure,
because to me, for example, when you have
Go ahead.
For example, when you have kids in school, right? So the sports is supposed to like motivate you, like you compete with other people and you like kind of want to win, and because of that you improve. You are more healthy, you are more sports-like, and to me, if you would have a man, a child, I don't know, 15 years old or something like that, a man and a male, and he would say that he's a woman, then he wouldn't like go through transition or nothing like that.
Let's
He would
play.
simply go,
Let's play that out, Mark. Let's play that out. Let's play that out, because you got to think about the scenario. You're a teenage kid, right? And you have male friends, and you are, living as a boy. You're a teenage boy, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know what? I want to win a gold medal, so I'm going to tell my team that I'm going to play with the girls to beat them. Do you think that that boy would be very popular in school to be like, I'm going to play with the other girls? Everybody would completely annihilate that poor young man, because they would be like, oh my God, what a loser. He's not going to actually play with the other boys on the team because he wants to get a trophy. Like, in reality, Mark, that doesn't actually happen, right? If the reason that a person is going to play with girls is because they feel like they're girls, it wouldn't be a very popular thing to do, to pretend to be a girl to play with girls' teams, right? Like, think about that, right? If you had a male friend that was pretending to be a girl to win sports, would that person be your friend, or would you call them a loser?
Right.
but
And this is...
first of all,
Sorry, go ahead.
may
She
I?
asked you a question.
First of all, they can like do it for a joke, like they can mock trans people, and they might do it to like show that up to them it's stupid. So in this case, they would all make a joke about it, and they would
So
like act
let's
seriously when they are talking to teachers, but it would be like inside joke to them. And second case, what if this male really wants to be a woman, really wants to be a trans? He genuinely wants it, but he's too young to have transition. Therefore, he would like still have advantage. Even if that's legit, he wants to be a woman, he would still have advantage. These two scenarios.
But those are two different questions, right? Those are two different scenarios, right? The first scenario is somebody pretending, right? And in these cases, a lot of people that get to participate in sports have to show insistent, consistent, and persistent gender dysphoria, right? So you have to actually have like a diagnosis from a doctor to be able to say, okay, this person is a trans person, so therefore they actually have a case to actually participate in that sport, for example. The second case, which is about transition, about medical transition, is when the medical, like, the sports, depending on the age, if it's a team sport, all of that type of stuff is then figured out afterward. But you have to figure out your trans first. But Arden, it looks like you have something to say.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, Mark, there's actually, it's funny, the example you gave is almost exactly, did you hear about the movie produced by Ben Shapiro called Lady Ballers?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So the premise of the movie, it's a comedy that is about a group of men who declare that they're women because they're sick of losing at basketball, and they think that this is going to make them win. Well, originally, when this idea was pitched, Ben Shapiro wanted this to be a documentary where they sincerely got a group of men to apply to be on women's basketball teams. Do you know why they didn't produce that movie, Mark? Because all of the athletic teams had strict guidelines on how trans women could compete. You can't just declare that you're a woman and suddenly compete on most athletic teams, which is why I specifically said at the beginning of when you brought this up, I support evidence-based guidelines that promote maximum fairness and maximum inclusiveness, because there shouldn't be any situation where somebody can, first of all, I think it's a ridiculous hypothetical that isn't real, and there should be no laws or regulations passed on this theoretical situation where somebody proclaims that they're a woman to win at sports. I don't think that's a realistic thing, as Josie has thoroughly pointed out. But it's also just not bearing out in like the examples where people have tried to do something like this. So mind you, all of this is completely detached from the definition of a woman, right? Now we're
That's
talking
right.
about like biology and fairness in sports. This conversation is completely removed from the definition of a woman, because there are some people who have DSDs, differences of sex development or intersex conditions, who are also excluded from competing in some Olympic sports because of the guidelines that were designed to prohibit trans women. These cis women have such high testosterone levels that I could only think of one actual case, and it's Caster Semenya. But the point is that these regulations aren't in place to ban trans women. They're in place to promote fairness and maximum inclusiveness. And while it's unfortunate that they even manage to exclude cis women in some cases, and there's maybe a question about whether we should have these regulations at all, the fictional scenario of a man saying he's a woman to dominate sports is just not real. It's not borne out in the evidence, and it's not borne out in the in real life, in like culture. So
yeah. And Mark, one other thing too about the definitions between sex and gender. I know a trans woman who lives in Poland right now, right? Like, she is living her life. She's able to integrate in society and be a trans person. So I understand that you say that there may not be the distinction between sex and gender in the language. That doesn't actually make it not true, right? And I understand language barriers. I actually, as English as a second language for myself, I used to speak Spanish, and I had a really hard time integrating the they them pronoun into my vocabulary because it was so hard for me to like figure it out. But I did figure it out, and I do it, and it works out now. But like, the idea that we have language barriers doesn't change the fact as well that there is a difference between sex and gender, which is where the what is a woman stems from. Because if you do believe that there's a difference between sex and gender, then there are two different ways to use women in the context that you use the words, right? And so like, I like to use this since it's the language thing as well, is, do you have sex with somebody or do you have gender with somebody?
Sex.
Yeah, you don't have gender with somebody, right?
It works in English because sex also means the act of like fucking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So the thing is, yeah, right. So those two words can be used in the same sentence, but they have a different context, right? So that shows right there in the language that there are two different things, right? And in English, right? And so we have to think about the fact that because there's a difference between sex and gender, and that's why I asked the question about a trans woman, a cis woman, a black woman, and a blonde-headed woman. Those are all types of women in the context of gender, right? And that's why the definition of what is a woman doesn't necessarily work in the way that a lot of people try to use it as a gotcha to say, yes, trans women don't exist because of the definitions, but actually we use the definition of woman in the general category of women all the time. Right. And that's why definitions aren't a good way to prove something is or something isn't.
Yeah.
Because words change all the time. Words change the usage of definitions, adapt to the words that exist in reality, not the other way around. We don't create words in a dictionary and then create the thing, right? A computer came first before the word computer came first. Got written in a dictionary. Right. It's the same type of concept. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I want to touch on one thing.
It
Mark.
wasn't. Yeah, go ahead.
We should wrap up this call, so I do want to give you a chance to respond. But the only thing I want to end on for me personally is, earlier in the call, Mark, you said you think it's really important to you to have definitions, and the example you brought up was sports, which we just kind of went over why it's, first of all, not related to definitions at all, but why sports aren't even a realistic concern. But I would just challenge you to question why you want definitions. Is it because it actually matters, or is it because it makes you more comfortable? And I'm willing to bet there's an answer there, but I'm not gonna. Okay, I kind of am answering for you in the subtext here, but anyway, I want to give you a chance to respond before we wrap up the call.
To be honest, I don't have last thoughts any.
Okay.
I just have to think about
Okay.
it all.
Thank you for calling in.
No,
I
that's
appreciate
fair.
it.
Yeah, and
Okay,
thank you for your
thanks.
honesty, right? Like being able to say you don't know in certain cases, and and that's completely fair, and that's fine. We totally understand that sometimes you got to step away and think about it a while. But if you have that opportunity, call back in again and tell us what you figured out.
Okay, sure. Thanks, bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Mark.
Bye.
All right. I did close the lines because
Yeah, I saw that.
we got to get to all
It
the
makes
callers.
sense. Yeah,
I do
we
just
do.
want
We
to.
do.
There's a chatter who is kind of being objectifying in the chat and fighting with the mods over being modded because that's against the rules. I just want to point out that it's funny to me how often people say, "Oh, we're not real women," when there are literally people who are incapable of being like, "Oh, I like your argument. I think that was a good point," but they have to comment on our physical appearance and our look, which is like precisely the problem with objectification and like ties into like sexism and all of that good stuff. But yeah, anyway, don't argue with the mods.
Yeah.
You can say, "Oh, her hair looks nice today," or "I like her glasses," or "That was a nice point." But when you say, "Wow, you guys are hot," you have crossed the line into objectifying. So anyway.
And we know we're hot. We don't need to hear it all the time.
Yes, I don't need you to tell me. Right. All right, we're going to bring in Brian. Uses any and all pronouns from Kansas. So, Brian, you are live on Transatlantic. Talk to us. What's going on?
Hi, Arden and Josie. Nice to speak with the two of you. I called in last week and spoke with Josie and Dr. Ben as well. I'm kind of recently been figuring out that I am gender fluid, and last week I called in and talked to them about kind of pronouns and using any and all pronouns. Mm-hmm. And this week I kind of ended up coming out to everyone that I'm gender fluid because on Monday I found out it was non-binary awareness week, so I figured what the heck, might as well come out. So
yeah,
I did that.
Congratulations.
My friend group is amazing. I have such great people around me. So like most of the responses have been along the lines of, "Thank God you finally figured out what we already knew."
Funny how that works.
So, right, everyone saw it but me.
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of in the space of trying to kind of figure out like how to explore different gender expression when I'm, feeling a little more girly, to put it, I guess. But I tend to be the type of person that like I go overboard. I'm like all in head first all the time. So I tend to, overwhelm myself and overwhelm the people around me. So I'm kind of trying to see what your thoughts are on maybe some subtle ways to kind of start exploring working in more feminine kind of expressions when I am on those days where I'm feeling more feminine without like overwhelming myself.
Totally. I love this. I've gone first every time. Josie, you want to go?
Okay, sure. First off, I'm so happy that you are giving yourself permission to be more yourself. I think that is so incredibly awesome, and you are inspiration to all the folks that are feeling exactly like you right now. So thank you for that and being visible with us right now. And honestly, there was like two things that I want to ask. I want to kind of, so there was one point you were like, I don't want to overwhelm myself, but you started with, I don't want to overwhelm my friends or people that you're with. So I want to make sure is that in alignment? Are you afraid about overwhelming yourself, or are you afraid of overwhelming others?
Really myself more than anything.
Okay.
Again, my friend group is so phenomenal. Like I could completely change to completely identifying as a woman and acting and dressing and looking like a woman tomorrow, and none of my friends would all celebrate.
Oh,
okay,
that's good.
Right.
So yeah, it's more overwhelming me than anything.
Okay.
That's fair.
No, that's completely fair. I think probably Arden and I have our own stories about overwhelming ourselves, trying to go the all the way to the end of freely pretty like an hour long makeup sessions. But you know, I would just start with what makes you feel comfortable, right? Start with painting your nails, right? Put on just foundation, right? Or just like experiment with different foundations, right? I think that's one of the things that is always a little for me, finding the right foundation was a journey, right? And sometimes, and then once you find that nice foundation, then it all begins. The palette is ready. And
yes.
then, yeah, right. And then, so, things like that, because like the first time you're going to do makeup, it's not going to look great. Unless you're just so lucky that you find the right one. But, it's going to be, watch some YouTube videos, makeup tutorials, think about how you want to do like your hair routine in the shower, right? Things like that can really help you like ease into it in a way that doesn't make it seem like I need to be perfect in the mirror the first time. I got bad news for you. It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I still cringe when I look at my coming out video not video, but my picture that I put on Facebook. I look at that thing and I'm like, oh, why did I do that? I know so many better pictures.
It's funny right now because I've had a buzz cut for years, so I'm trying to let it grow out some. So like right now, it just looks like a giant floppy mess. But
oh yeah,
and that was one of the fingernail thing. Like I've been painting my fingernails every now and then for decades, probably since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So like that was one of the things that when I came out, some of my friends were like, "Man, you've been painting your nails forever. How did you not figure this out?"
Yeah. I think for me, one thing that I started doing, because like, so when I started kind of playing with my gender expression, I knew that I was a trans woman and that I was trying to get to that end goal, but I wanted to like be gentle with myself. And so one thing that I started doing was going to work with like eye makeup done. And that was actually for me a really good experience because in my head, this was back at the time where makeup YouTube was like a really big thing. I think it still probably is, but it was like a really big deal back then. And so I was like, there are so many like makeup gurus who are men. So like, even if I was a man, there should be nothing wrong with me wearing makeup and going into work. That would just be like discrimination. And so I just did it. And for me, like a little bit of like, just like a kind of a light kind of shadow on your eye or like a little bit of a cat eye. Some of those things can really good. Also, by the way, my miracle foundation is the Maybelline Matte and Poreless for a normal to oily in 115 Ivory. That is my go-to foundation. I get it at the drugstore regularly because it is just the one that works the best for my skin.
I'm bougie. I use Macaj. Woke Up This Way. It's great. I love it.
I've tried the fancier ones, and it just didn't really make me feel the same way that the Maybelline Matte and Poreless does. But yeah, I totally endorse like playing with makeup and starting on those kinds of things because I think that's something that whether or not you're, gender fluid, if you wanted to do that, even as a man, you could totally do that. So if anyone has problems with it, that's at the point where they're being shitty and it's not anything wrong with you, So I feel like that's a good place to start. But like also something that I would point out is, are you like putting clothes away in a drawer? What is that?
Yeah, it feels like I hear it sounds like there's something in the background.
No, I don't. I'm just sitting on my couch, actually. I don't know.
Oh, weird.
Okay. Maybe I think I know what it is, but it's fine, Ryan. Go ahead. Go ahead, Arden.
Yeah, I think something advice they've given to a lot of people has been like, I don't know if you're struggling with dysphoria at all, but like I would generally say like just take kind of inventory of like, before you feel like, oh, I need to transition to a woman, be like, I don't like facial hair. So regardless of whether or not I'm a woman, even if I end up realizing in 2 years that I'm actually still a man, I think I would still want laser hair removal. So like that is something you can do. That is like a transitionary step but that also doesn't commit you to anything that you don't necessarily feel ready for. And I think you can kind of look at all transition steps that way.
Rid of facial hair.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I will say it is expensive, and be very careful. Don't fall for the predatory loans that I fell for, which is like
there.
Oh, like if you pay this much and like a loan for this payment over this period, you can get like indefinite laser hair removal, which is like, by the way, in one end it's good because they'll tell you 6 treatments. I'm gonna tell you it's way more than 6 treatments. It's a lot of treatments.
Yeah.
There's just some facial hair that's just persistent, and that you will have to get treated for a long time to come. But
I know, I'm almost finally there. I'm finally on the lowest little hair follicle for the electrolysis. I've been doing it for like 3 years.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
It's frustrating, but like there are methods to have that taken care of, and to like finance those kinds of things that aren't going to be a problem. But I would just highly recommend, before you get like a medical loan for that kind of thing, because they do exist, and they will approve anyone, no matter what your credit score is or anything like that. Just be very smart about it, and be sure you can like budget in a payment like that before you commit to it. But yeah, there are ways to do that. Also, look at the laser. The one I've always used has been the Candela something. Candela's pretty good, but sometimes you'll get those like Groupons for lasers, and they're not very good. And I would, just be careful.
I don't think that's something I would go in on, something like that.
And another thing too is like wardrobes can be incredibly expensive. So like apps like ThredUp is like it's like a national wide like thrift store essentially, and you just get really cheap clothes. I found some really cheap dresses when I first started my transition that I still wear to this day. And it's like one of those things that is also a really affordable way to be able to do that. Also, if you have any friends that our presentation is femme, like go over and be like, hey, you got some clothes you want to get rid of, and just go and just try on some of their clothes out of their closet and just have a fun time with it. Like I did that once, and it was also really affirming and good too. Just so you know, what flatters your body can also be a really good feeling as well, because everybody's bodies are different. So different clothes flatter their I guess their assets, that of their bodies. So those are a few things that you can also do that isn't as heavy as a commitment as hair removal, which also I will say this, hair removal takes even longer if you still have testosterone coursing through your body, because that will help your hairs grow faster and thicker all the time. So that's another thing to think about as well. So there's a lot of different things that you can do, but you can still do it. It will work eventually. So those are a few of the things that I think will be able to help you out. And yeah, don't take yourself so seriously. Like, just have fun. Yeah. Just do what you got to do. Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny hearing your suggestions, because they're all, like I said before, kind of things that I already kind of do and should have noticed myself long ago. Like,
sure.
I'm a runner, and I love borrowing my wife and I are about the same size. I love borrowing her running skirts.
Yeah. I love running skirts. Skirts.
Like,
I love them.
The only time I would say I feel any kind of dysphoria is I have facial hair. I hate it, but I'm also too lazy to shave consistently. So, like, I constantly have facial hair, and it drives me insane, and I hate it, and it makes me feel weird about myself. So, yeah, laser hair removal in my face or something is something I have thought about.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's also no shame in learning to like love that part of yourself. There are some trans people who've done some great advocacy and being like, this is what my body is, and I shouldn't have to change it to earn your approval of my gender. And I totally agree with that. Like, if, you have facial hair and you're a trans woman, that's totally valid. But, yeah, I mean, if it's something that bothers you or that you think would make you feel better if you did it, I completely support people taking full agency over the tools of medical science that are available to us to feel good in your body. Like, you deserve that. So, yeah.
And like, it feels interesting, because the reason I haven't identified as non-binary and gender fluid instead is that I do very much identify with like man and woman. I just kind of been in a gray area between the two constantly. So like today I woke up feeling fairly masculine, and like my facial hair didn't bother me this morning when I was getting up. But yesterday, like I was feeling super feminine, and I was wearing like all the pink clothes I have, and when I looked in the mirror, it made me crazy that I had this beard, and it's like, ooh, that's gross. It's like trying to figure out where that balance is, where on the days that I feel masculine, I can, and on the days that I feel feminine, I can, and on the days that I'm somewhere between that, I can.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm excited for your journey. I'm so glad that you have now, because now that you've come to terms with it and are able to accept yourself, you're going to become more clear on what you like and what you don't like and what to do on those mornings you wake up in those ways. And yeah, I'm excited for you, and I'm glad that you have a supportive ring of friends that will, you know, hold you up when you're feeling down.
Yes, and I'm glad that I have this show also. I've loved this show forever, and now it's feeling a little bit more personal now. And having been able to call in and talk to the two of you and to Dr. Ben last week has really been amazing. So thank you both so much, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian. You have a lovely day, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, before you take the next call, I'm going to turn on my air conditioner at a higher rate. Hold on.
Yeah, go for it. Also, it's funny just looking at Dreamscape in chat. I see you talking shit. Also brought up Leah Thomas to try to be like, oh, trans people have an advantage in sports, except for Leah Thomas has lost multiple competitions before, which also, it deeply offends me that trans women have to lose competitions to prove that we are like valid or anything like that. Like, trans women should be allowed to win and have victories without, you know, having the entire world descend upon them. But the reason you bring that shit up is because you have no fucking data to back up your point. All you have is a salacious news story that you heard from fucking twitter.com.
And you don't know the true reality is that Leah Thomas pre-transition actually was in the top 8 best swimmers in the entire college system in the NCAA, and then after a year of transition on hormones, she went from like top 8 to like 495. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, Leah Thomas went from like 495 to like first place in the woman category. Like, BS, she did. Like, you know, the fact of the matter is that testosterone treatment turned her from being one of the top best swimming male competitors to one of the top best female competitors. And the thing about that too is the fact that she only won, like Arden said, one competition, and it wasn't even close to breaking the world record. The world record is still held by Katy Ledecky, who is arguably the best swimmer in the world, even more so than Michael Phelps, because she's actually more decorated as a swimmer. And she's taller and weighs more than Leah Thomas as well. In fact, I have used pictures of Katy Ledecky in a pool, and everybody's like, oh my God, look at that man in sports. And it's like, no, that's Katy Ledecky. She is a cis woman that is a badass and can outswim everybody.
It's so frustrating because it just upholds this completely sexist ideology that is anti-woman. You know, even if we completely remove trans people from the category, it upholds this complete lie, sexist lie about women's abilities, and it's shameful. Like, you should be embarrassed that you think and talk like that. But anyway,
I know
that was just to fill the dead air. Let's get to our last 4 callers. We're gonna talk to let's talk to Christine in Florida. I think this could be a really interesting conversation. Christine, pronouns are she, her, and Florida, wants to discuss like using showers or changing rooms, kind of, right, Christine? Tell us from your perspective what you want to talk about.
Well, I love camping, and one of the things that concerns me and scares the crap out of me is like using the ladies' shower, because when it go in the shower, you get the changing room, they see male body parts. It might scare the you-know-what out of the ladies. Or if I go into the men's showers, they'll see female breasts and me dressed like a female, and that might freak the men out. So I don't know what other trans women have done, and I just wonder what to do.
This is a tough one. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I called a couple weeks ago, and I want to say thank you because I now use the ladies' restroom all the time, even though talk about now it's like beating a dead horse, and I still get people to say, these guys tell me you let a trans woman use the restroom when my daughter is in there, but that's that dead horse,
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
Yeah, so going back to the shower thing. Yeah. So this is a tough one, right? Because we still live in a bigoted world. And safety is always our primary concern at all times. I've known trans women that sometimes will just it depends on what type of shower it is. There aren't that many showers these days that are just like open rooms, but if they are, like, that's kind of like one of those things that you have to make a judgment call on. But a lot of times I see a lot of people, a lot of showers nowadays, really, you go in, you have a towel around your body. And so usually you'll just go in and take the towel off once you're in the shower with the curtain. I've seen some women, cis and trans, that wear bikini bottoms before they go into the shower as well. And then take those off, and nobody's going to say, oh my gosh, that's just a private person. That doesn't matter if you're trans or cis on that as well. That's the one thing that I say on that. I would say don't use the male bathrooms because you're more in danger statistically in that way. And so that's kind of, I would say, is, continue to use the women's spaces, right? Because that's where you're going to be the safest. And in those situations, I also like camping as well. And usually when maybe I'm telling on myself right now. When I go camping, I don't shower. I'm usually in a tent, and I don't have facilities to shower unless I'm jumping in the lake. So it's kind of like it depends on what type of camping that you're doing. And it's not even a safety thing. It's just like, I'm in the wilderness. Why am I going to shower? I'll shower when I get home. I'll just be gross. I climb mountains, so I don't know. I've never had a desire while I'm out camping to shower. I'm telling on myself.
Let's get together and hike the AT. I would love to do that.
Yes.
But
oh my gosh.
But no, I have a travel trailer, and I pull it in campgrounds, and it does have a shower inside. But there are those days where you're camping and you go out, you start off in the morning, go for a long hike, and sweaty and gross and dirty at the end of the day. It'd be nice to take a nice hot shower. Yeah, that's the thing of it. A long hot shower. If I take a short shower, you go in my camper. 5 minutes later, I'm done. But when you want to take a long hot shower, it's nice. It's like
yeah. I definitely co-sign most of what Josie said. I think it's an unfortunate reality of the world that we live in, where it's like, there. I don't know if they're still on the line, but there was a caller who wanted to talk about gender abolitionism. Yes, okay. Well, we'll get to you, Finn. Don't worry. So I won't spoil it too much, but it's one of those things where it's like, would I love to live in that world? Absolutely. But I would rather contend with the reality of the world we actually live in currently, which is one where it's probably not safe to go completely nude in an open plan room. But like Josie said, there are tons of cis women who would never do that and who would rather wear a bathing suit and shower that way to be more comfortable. And I think that's an option for you. Do I think that we should be able to shower and use those facilities? Absolutely. Maybe it's TMI. I will occasionally get dressed up and do nice things, but my like two modes that I'm comfortable in are sweatpants or like nudity. Like when I'm doing like some fun time drugs. Wow, man, we're just going down this rabbit hole. All right, when I'm doing
really
some fun
telling on
time
ourselves
stuff,
today.
I love to just be like tripping and fully nude. Like that is a good time to me. It's just like an embracing like the human condition, you know. We evolve without clothes. I'm gonna go fuck up my brain without clothes. But like I think I would love us to be able to live in a time where we can do that and we can just exist in that space. But I don't think we're there yet. And so I would definitely advise you to be careful and to be cautious of what's going on around you. I mean, if you're on like a relatively secluded campsite and you can maybe get away with like one of those portable showers and you want to do that, I mean, you live your best life. But like, yeah, I would caution against purely out of your safety, just the flagrant use of open plan like showers or anything like that. But
I don't even like them, even with my even before I transitioned. Like the last time I used an open plan shower was like in boot camp, like, you know, when I was in the military. Outside of that, like I've always, even on ships, I had like a stall of some sort. But I don't know. Maybe you are in a space where there's so many open plan showers everywhere, Christine. I don't know.
Yeah, most of the showers I've seen have like they're a shower stall, but they have like the change a big changing room. Now, last year we had the hurricane came through here, and I was without power or water, I think, for like 10 days. So I had to go and drive into town to take a shower. Now, those had these like individual public shower stalls. You go in, and it's like a room, and there's you change little changing room, and you go in the curtain, go behind the curtain, take a shower, and it's your own private shower. And that was nice. I think that a lot of campgrounds are starting to have those now.
Yeah,
but I
agree. It's just safer. You know, I mean, Americans are also very private people. So, like, it doesn't matter if you're trans or cis. People don't want you staring at them, regardless of who they are.
Yeah.
You know, it's just how it is. So Christine, I hope that answers some of your questions. I would still encourage you to use female spaces because you're just safer, genuinely. Because like you're not going to have some random man walk in on you if you're in a female space.
Yeah.
Than you would if you were in a male space, and then that would be scary. But yeah.
I would also think that, like, if I really want to get a shower, maybe take one like in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. or something. Yeah, when all the other campers are in bed. In the ladies' room. Yeah.
I do want to say, Christine, it's not lost on me that is this is patent. You know, this is what it is to be marginalized, right? The fact that in order to take a shower while camping, we have to think, well, I'll go at 3 a.m. when nobody is awake, or I'll wear a bathing suit. That way nobody can see my body that would, you know, cause them to have bad thoughts about me. It's fucked up that we're in this situation. But again, your safety is paramount here. So let's definitely prioritize that. But
I recommend bikini bottoms too. Just go into bikini bottoms.
Yeah.
If there's an open floor plan, just go into bikini bottoms. Yeah, it just might be the best thing for you.
We do got to move on and take another caller, but I want to give you a chance to say goodbye, Christine, or anything else you want to add.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate everything you've done for me, and thank you for your assistance and help, and I really feel like this is good support. So keep up the good work, ladies. I love y'all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Love you too.
Appreciate you,
Thank
Christine.
you.
Bye.
Yeah, bye now.
Alrighty. So we have 3 callers left on the line. None of them are entirely spicy, so I'm gonna take them the order they came in. I saw Finn in chat asking if we were gonna get to him.
We will.
You've only been on for 37 minutes. We have 2 people who've been on for over an hour, so we're gonna take them first. If that's too much for you and you want to disconnect, that I totally understand. But we are planning to get to you. We're just gonna take them in order that people came in. So first up is Wendy. somewhere in the USA, pronouns are she, her, wants to talk about trans women who say that they're cis when they've had all the surgeries. So lay it on us. What's going on, Wendy?
Hello, I am such a huge fan. I'm very starstruck right now by both of you, so thank you for having me on. So I have been witness to some conversations among trans women, mostly, I think it is. It's online conversations, who just say that, so now that I've had all the surgeries, I'm not really sure what that means exactly. I think that might be different things for different people, of course. So now I'm cis, or I identify as cis because I have gone through all of this, and basically there's nothing about me that's trans anymore, and I'm just me, basically. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, yeah.
So my very first thought is I would caution against taking that seriously. I know there is an example of someone who's called on the show within the last 6 months who's claimed that, who I have very good reason to believe they were full of shit and lying. Meaning that we get the call notes of their last call, and a month before they had called with a different name and different pronouns, but they were saying this time that they had all the surgeries 2 years ago. So it's a little bullshit. I know there's also a parody account on Twitter that's relatively popular that a lot of people don't know is a parody account that notoriously says stuff like this. So not that there aren't trans women out there who actually claim it. There are. I would just say we should use a little bit of caution before just accepting that this is maybe necessarily something that's real that's happening. But for those people who say that, I think what's happening is you are seeing somebody who has probably experienced a lot of self-loathing and discrimination in their life, and the best way that they can cope with it is to try to say, I'm not those despicable, gross transes. I've done everything right to earn your approval, so you should accept me. And I think we should reflect on the few people who do seriously claim things like this with a little bit of empathy and a little bit of pity, honestly, of the fact that life has taken you to a place where you can say something like that is really sad, because there's nothing wrong with being trans, and you should be able to celebrate your transness. And I get why it's hard to do that in today's political landscape, but claiming to be cis is not, it's not helping you, it's not helping the movement. It is just kind of confusing things for everyone. And so I don't really dig that, but go ahead, Josie.
So there's also I'm going to take some different angles from Arden, because there's definitely that approach. There's also I'll start with this. I also question anybody who says they were trans and are now cis. Usually there are a lot of people who did go stealth, right? And they're just like, I'm a cis woman and I just won't even say that I have trans history. I never had a surgery. I'm just a cis. And there's a lot of people who do that for safety reasons because of the fact that they're just too afraid. And more power to them if they're living a cis life and they're just saying, no, I'm not trans or whatever. It's like some people I make that decision. There's a lot of older trans folks as well, who are older generation trans folks who passability was literally a sense of survival. So back in the day, there were a lot of cis women who would go and they would say, I went to Bangkok and I came back a woman, right? And you know, they would say that around their sisters, but in society, they were able to go and get an actual job that actually was like inaccessible to like trans people. And they were able to like go to jobs and say, oh yeah, I'm a cis woman, I've been born a woman, and you know, and use that surgery as kind of like the proof, because it was so rare back then that it was just like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess you are a woman, you have a vagina. And it was a sense of that as well, because it was literally you being out excluded from society if you didn't already have those type of things done to you. So there's a lot of women who say, I'm a woman with trans experience. I've heard elder women say that, right? And you know, it's just like, okay, I get what you're trying to say, but in reality, there are where Arden is talking about, where if someone is openly saying I was a trans woman and now I'm cis, kind of defeats the purpose of both those things that I just talked about, right? Because if you're saying you were trans and now you are cis, people are still going to see you in society as one of those trans people, right? And it's kind of like wishful thinking to think like I broke the cotton ceiling, they used to call it, in like, you know, where it's like I made it through the cotton ceiling. I am now, you know, in the lifestyle that can now require me to be called a woman. But if you are talking about it openly, then you're kind of doing pick me behavior. Which is what, where it's like I did the thing, I took the extra step, so therefore my legitimacy as a woman has been proven, so therefore I'm no longer trans, which is wishful thinking. In society, the society will not treat you that way, and it's better just to embrace the fact that you're trans, because then you're able to normalize trans people in all shapes and sizes. So I hope that clarifies some things. I know Arden and I kind of went amongst the spectrum of why somebody may call themselves trans after obviously being trans.
Yeah. What you were talking about, Arden, with the two different, like one person maybe who was called into the show or who had been writing in the chat or something, and then another instance it was like a Twitter account. I'm not really referring to either of those things, but I'm sure that all exists in various trolls and whatever. I think it's kind of interesting because some will say like I was assigned male at birth, but I'm not assigned male at birth anymore because my birth certificate says something different now.
Yeah.
So that it's kind of confusing, but I agree with both of you saying just like embrace the fact that you're trans. It's just another type of woman and all of that. And it touches a little bit on what Josie was saying to an earlier caller. Now I forget exactly what you said, but it kind of reminded me of this conversation that I wanted to have with you. So
yeah, I think I have been in like support groups with some older trans women who that's more of the crowd who, from what Josie was saying, like the woman of trans experience, I have heard that, and my birth certificate says this, so like that doesn't go back and rewrite the past. And I think like one of the advantages that trans women have against bigots in this conversation, and trans people generally, is, you know, they'll often say, well, trans people think men can be women, and that only works if you think trans people are saying that we're cis women, and we're not saying that we're cis women, we're saying we're trans women. And I think it kind of undermines like a key advantage that we have in this conversation and advocating for our own rights, and in at least in undermining one of the strongest, you know, most common counter arguments against us. So it is frustrating. I do see it, but I just, the only reason I gave that qualification about like the parody account is because I've seen some people who I know, who I respect, follow this parody account, and the only reason that I know that they would follow it is because they sincerely thought it was a trans woman. And so I want to just put that out there so that if that triggers that part of the brain in somebody, that I'm already heading off that argument. But no, I appreciate the clarification. Those people definitely exist, and I think it's one of the difficulties of when you are a minority who faces a lot of discrimination. You know, people cope with that in a lot of different ways, and I think that is just one of those ways that people might cope with the discrimination that we face for being trans people.
Yeah, and also I'll also recommend this too, Wendy. We are saying what we see as our position as trans people in the community, and it's easier for Arden and I to have a conversation with that person who's saying they're cis but was once trans. But and I assume that you're a cis person, Wendy. I don't mean to if I am. It's not an opportunity to say you're not cis, you're trans, right? It's kind of like one of those things where it's just like, okay, this person has this lived understanding about themselves, and it's just to move on. Because regardless, and it seems like for you, Wendy, it wouldn't matter if that person was cis or trans woman, you would still treat them as a woman. So the reality is, it's like a lot of folks that try to say they're a cis woman and not a trans woman are trying to be like an extra qualifier of woman, when all women are women, and it doesn't matter if you're trans or cis. There's no more to being a woman than what is already the understanding identity of being a woman. So yeah, that I just wanted to add that because, you know, it's just not worth having the argument. It's not worth having the argument of being like, you're actually trans though. It's just like, okay, person, if that's how you live your reality, go ahead. You're like 1% of all trans people probably in the world that think that way. Just I would say just move on and be like, okay, that person's a little funny, but sure, they're still a woman either way.
Yes, when I encounter that, I'm strictly lurking because I am cis, and so just being in online space and everything, I just completely stay out of it, but just read.
Of course.
And that's why I kind of called in, because it's like, well, I'm not going to interact on that platform because that's not for me.
Sure.
But this platform is more like you can call in with your questions and see what trans people have to say.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was thinking this is more appropriate. So yeah, definitely.
No, thank you.
Not, I'm not interfering with their discussions or anything. So
no, I appreciate it.
But that's why I appreciate
the
your
whole goal
platform.
of the show. But yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. You have a lovely day, Wendy. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
All right, we have 2 callers left. I want to get to them both. I also have to piss like a racehorse, so I'm going to bring in this next caller, and I'll let Josie start off with it. But we're going to talk to Matt, who has no pronouns given anyway, in the UK. Wants to know if gender is a label or a category, needs attributes for a category, and wants to explore that. Interesting. It's unfortunate I'm going to have to miss the beginning of this conversation, but I'm suffering, so I'll be back. Go ahead, Matt.
Go do that. All right. Hey, Matt. I'm here. How are you?
I also need to piss like a racehorse, but let's get through this.
Let's get through it.
Somebody mentioned sport. I don't care about sports at all, but and I agree we don't have the data, but it is going to be interesting when the data comes in, because either trans women will be at the top of all the women's, the women's categories, or they won't. So we will know when the data comes in, and it will be interesting. Mm-hmm. I watch a lot of atheist experience in the thing, and the question is always, what do you believe and why? And people will then, theists will say, I believe in God, and the host will say, what do you mean by God? But earlier somebody said, well, definitions aren't really important, but I think they are important, because I don't understand, how can you identify if there isn't a definition? What are you identifying as? This amorphous, undefined thing. So
I totally... Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Complete your thought.
No, go on. That's right.
No, I was going to start with the point of like definitions, and I think we said like definitions don't matter in like not the like, oh my gosh, we need words to be defined. So there's no word. Definitions matter in language, right? Like language is important, and it allows us to be descriptive. It allows us to communicate. It has a lot of those type of things. I think where the idea of like the definitions aren't important when the definitions are reduced down to like one sentence, right? Like if it's like a definition, this word is only this way, then I think that definition no longer becomes important to the discussion, because now it's becoming obstinate, right? I think that the idea about definitions being important are important in language and identification and those type of things, but I think that some people conflate definitions. So I will say that the definition of woman is important as long as you expand it the way it's supposed to be defined, right? Not like so many bad faith individuals that try to define it into this like little narrow, tiny little thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, somebody brought up the no true Scotsman fallacy, which happens all the time on the atheist channel. Mm-hmm. And yeah, nobody gets to define a definition, it's usage. But when you're having a discussion, you have to have a common language.
That's right. I agree. That's why in debate, you have to be able to define the words of the debate, because if you never define the terms of a debate, then there is no way to win it, right? And I think that a lot of times when somebody calls in and tries to say, oh, a woman is this thing, and we don't agree upon that definition because they're narrowing the definition and not allowing for the expansion of what that definition means in the modern tense or the usage of that word. I think definitions we get lost in the definitions, and then the definition no longer becomes it's important, but it's not. We get lost in the definition instead of the topic. So that, I think that's where it is. And Arden, to catch you up, Matt is speaking about when you said earlier in a conversation that definitions aren't important.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, I think this kind of hones in on the difference between descriptive and prescriptive definitions, right? Like when people bring up adult human female to try to invalidate transgender people or transgender women specifically, they're trying to assert that the definition of female of a woman as adult human female is prescriptive. And so if it doesn't meet these exact standards, then that individual cannot be a woman because that's what the language says. But that's not what language is. Language is descriptive. Definitions describe how words are used. They don't prescribe some sort of ontological reality. So that's mostly what I'm talking about. I mean, the tendency for anti-trans people to try to push this prescriptive notion of words, to me, is a waste of time and a red herring, because that's not how any words work. And anytime they're pressed on any other definition, they'll acknowledge that that's not how words work. But for this one definition, because it really makes them uncomfortable if it's not the case, they really hold to that. And so I was just trying to say whatever we want to agree on the definition, it is useful for language, like Josie was saying, and for communicating. But I don't think it should hold any, whether or not I fit into someone's specific definition of woman, I don't really care about that because definitions are not prescriptive.
So my question originally was, is gender a label or a category? So if it's a label, it's like my name. My name has no impact on external reality. And I could change my name tomorrow and it wouldn't affect reality. But a category is something that has a given number of attributes and either fits into a category because it has those attributes, or it doesn't fit into that category because it doesn't have the attributes. So if gender is a category rather than a label, what are the necessary attributes for it?
So I push back a little because I don't think when it comes to the category, when it comes to gender, right, I think it can be both a label and a category. We're like, we can label, you can identify with a certain gender, but we're also talking about a certain category. I would say that this kind of sounds like you're touching on the notion of gender identity, which I would say is like a psychological construct. I've often used the phrase a durable psychological construct. It is a model in your head that is relatively stable over time, much like handedness and personality, that doesn't have any actual, we do not have the capacity yet to point to the brain and go, this is where the gender is. But as a methodological naturalist, I assume that there is some physical natural point at where, or some sequence of neuron firing that essentially amounts to what your perception of your own gender identity is. But it's difficult to quantify that in a way that makes most people feel comfy. Because it's kind of like, well, what gives me my sense of gender identity? I don't know. Much like the same reason that I don't know why I prefer vanilla ice cream over chocolate. It is just a fact that I can observe about my own internal state.
Yeah.
So is gender qualia then? Is gender entirely subjective? Or is there any objective component?
I would push back on the notion of qualia. I don't necessarily think it's qualia, because qualia is kind of this dualistic element to experiences that I don't really buy into. But for the purposes of argument, I think qualia is, or gender is essentially gender identity anyway, is essentially your perception of your experience. So I think, you know, maybe the necessary category or the necessary attribute of gender as a category would be the existence of this gender identity. But the only person who has access to that information is the individual themselves, which is why it kind of gets used as a label, because the only way I know what your gender identity is if you tell me. We don't have the capacity to open up your brain and see gender identity yet, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
And I also want to add to Matt about I tend to use gender as a categorical model a lot. Right. I use it in a lot of my argumentation, you know, especially with the example of a black woman, a blonde woman, you know, a cis woman and a trans woman are all types of women. And that woman would be a category within gender. Right. Like, so like there's like different things. So like inside of gender, there are different categories that I like to look at societally. Right. Now, what I understand your question about, well, if it is a category, then what is the parameters that fit things into that category? And yeah, a lot of times we can figure it out through societal understanding of what feminine presentation is. And, you know, sometimes it's easy like that, but sometimes it's a fucking platypus, right? And it's like, wait a minute, mammals are supposed to have fur. Okay, great. But are mammals supposed to lay eggs? Wait, what about a bill? Does that make it a bird now? Like, you know, so like, you know, there's always going to be limitations, even when you try to create the parameters of a category. So because we are human and we have sentience, we have the ability to kind of fill in those gaps by just asking the person, right? We can't ask a platypus, hey, platypus, are you a mammal? Or are you a bird? Or are you some kind of fish hybrid? What are you, right? And the platypus can't be, because we have to apply that onto the platypus as humans, because the platypus isn't going to be able to use human language to be able to tell us what it is. But luckily for us, a person says, I'm a woman, they can say, hey, I'm a woman, and then therefore they fall into that category, because I would say one of the categorical things that helps you understand who is in the category of woman is probably just asking them. And then once they say they're a woman, it kind of like hits that parameter that makes them a part of the woman category. But there's also the way that society kind of does it, which is kind of like how we look at mammals and birds and fish, and you can almost get there, right? You can be like, okay, yeah, all this dogs, cats, and, you know, those horses, yeah, they're all mammals, right? And you could say that to like the standard cis woman, right? Or standard like binary trans woman that's feminine. You could be like, oh yeah, horse, dogs, cats, whatever. It's like, oh, those are women. You can do that. But then what do you do with the well? Like, right? You have to get close to it, find its fur, like, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's easier for us as humans to be able to talk to each other, because that's the fastest way to be able to put ourselves into those categories, because humans tend to like to put things in the categories, including ourselves, which is very interesting. It's just kind of like a human condition. Does that make sense, Matt?
Well, I may have got this wrong. Are you saying basically the burden of proof doesn't exist, and you're saying I'm a woman because that's what I state is the truth? Because I wouldn't accept that from a religious person.
So I don't think... It's not that there is no burden of proof. It's that gender as a subjective experience, gender identity, the only person who can know that is that individual from that subjective experience. Could they be lying when they say they're a woman? Yeah, of course. I mean, just like if you meet someone on the bus and they say they're a teacher, they could be lying about that. But generally speaking, or a better analogy, I keep using the preferred flavor of ice cream, because I think that more relates to people, since, you know, you don't really know why you like things. You just like some things and dislike other things. When someone tells me they like chocolate ice cream, I don't... Sure. They could be lying, right? Of course. But there's no reason for me to doubt that until there's actually good evidence to see that they are lying about that.
Yeah, and also, Matt, just to deconflate some things, right? Somebody's gender identity of what themselves are is not a faith-based claim, right? Because that's the difference between somebody who says, no, there's a God, that's a faith-based claim, versus somebody who is saying, no, myself, the person that I am, and here standing in front of you, I am a woman, right? It's not a faith-based claim.
Neither are demonstrating it to be true.
Well...
So it is faith-based unless there's a demonstration of truth.
I would push back on that if you hold to that exact same thing for when people say what their favorite flavor of ice cream is, then sure. Favorite flavor of ice cream is also a faith-based claim. But if you accept people's report of their internal experience on anything else, you pretty much are putting yourself in a position where you're special pleading about that they don't actually have access to their sense of their awareness of their internal state with regard to gender, which seems to obviously be the case. I think we have lots of data that shows that children are aware of their sense of gender from like a very young age, and that certain treatments based on those sorts of indicators are actually very reliable. We have pretty solid deductive models based on the presumption of this sort of like gender identity construct, because that's what people are reporting, and we can build models around it. But like, sure, in as much as you can't know that anyone is being honest about anything of their internal state that they're reporting to you, yeah, you can't know about someone's gender, but you would catch yourself in such a ridiculous web of like being skeptical about everything that people say about themselves if you follow that to its logical conclusion, right? So I'm not telling you have to accept my gender identity. I'm telling you my perception of my internal state, which seems to be, like I said, we can build pretty strong scientific models around the reliability of treatments based on people's awareness of this internal state, is X. If you don't think that I'm being honest about that, you don't have to. You don't have to think that anyone's being honest about anything, but it's not the same as a religious claim, right? That's a completely different thing. There's no models you can build around God or prayer.
I don't think either are testable claims. Because if somebody says, I've got a soul, or I believe Jesus in my heart, they're all internal claims that can't be demonstrated to be true.
Right, but the difference is we can build models. No model. Right, we can build accurately predictive treatment models based on someone's report of their internal state of gender, just like we can build accurate predictive models of treatment with regard to people's internal state of depression or pain or what ice cream they like or who they love. We can guess what parts of their brain region will light up under an MRI based on who they say they love. But no, wait, hold on. But you can't do that. You can't do that with Jesus. There's no model that you can build that would accurately predict anything other than like people's perception of Jesus, not the existence of Jesus.
But I can put a religious person in the same MRI machine and go, they believe God exists.
The difference is that the trans people actually exist, gender identity actually exists, while we don't have produced. What was that?
I have to take your word for that, though.
Well, no, you're not into the world.
Yeah.
No, because they're trans people, but you would have to deny the reality of trans people altogether to believe that. Does that make sense?
It's not just taking our word for it, Matt. We have very complex models. Matt, we have very complex models that like the majority of medical associations within the US have accepted, like, oh yeah, when somebody says they're trans, if they're still saying they're trans by this point in time from the first time they say it, we can know that they're going to benefit from this treatment massively. And cis people who we put through this treatment endure significant harm for it, right? So you're not just taking our word for it that you exist. You would have to deny the same kind of evidence that we have for every treatment on like schizophrenia and depression, all of these things that come from deductive models of people reporting their experience at time X and then reporting their experience after treatment at time Y. Like those are things that we've used to deduct, and obviously they're going to be incomplete models because we don't have access to the set of neurons that is depression in your brain, right? We don't know exactly what that is, and there's actually reason to believe it's different for every person. But we can develop these models that show a group of people. I hear you sighing, I realize, but it's because you are giving us objections that require complex answers. So when we're looking at
but I have the bottles and I don't get to give them.
Well,
okay, Matt.
Yeah, but it's because
we will let you talk in a second.
It's because the objections you're launching require lengthy explanations, and I'm sorry that's frustrating to you, but that's just the fact of the conversation. So,
but you're trying to use the argument from personal experience, which I don't accept with theists.
It's not an argument from personal experience. Holy fucking shit! How is that this difficult? It's deductive reasoning. Yeah. The same reason. So wait, hold on. Do you not accept that? Like people who are depressed are really depressed, even though we have complex models based on their self-report, and that consistent forms of self-report show that certain treatments benefit the people who have this. Like, do you not accept that population exists?
I do, but I can't prove it. If I say I'm
Sure.
depressed, you can't prove that.
Okay,
I'm
so
just saying it's not
are
provable.
you thinking that proof in science has to be absolute? Because that's
I'm
not
saying
how
that
proof
some
works
proof has
in
to be
any
offered.
science.
I'm saying you are not as skeptical about this claim as you are on the atheist channel.
I am perfectly
It's not a level
skeptical
playing
about
field.
people's gender claims. People can. I literally talked about earlier. Somebody called in and they were saying that they were trans, but there was actually good reason to believe they're lying. I'm perfectly skeptical about the notion that somebody could be lying about gender claims and that you are accepting a claim of personal experience. The difference is this is a group of people who we have good reason to believe from lots of bodies of evidence, from different kinds of evidence, that this group of people exists and that they benefit from treatment. Why? We have strong predictive models of treatment for this group of people because they are so consistent, better than we have for many other treatment models of medications where we have like actual blood tests that can diagnose them. So this is a strong reason to believe that this group of people exists. Is it absolute? No. But to say that it is the same as a faith claim is patently absurd. It is not just their personal experience. It's personal experience when you're accepting an individual trans person day to day. But when you're accepting the model of trans people existing as a whole in society, this is demonstrable with lots of evidence.
I accept the religious people exist in society
So
too,
Matt,
but I don't.
That's not the fucking same thing, Matt. When religious people say, no, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up. I'm going to mute you if you don't stop talking. When religious people say that God exists, they're talking about, shut up. When religious people say that God exists, they're talking about something external to themselves that exists in reality. Matt, shut the fuck up. I'm muting you because you don't know how to stop talking. When religious people say that God exists, they're talking about something external to themselves. They're making a claim about ontology. They're making a claim about reality, right? They're saying this entity, this agent exists in reality. We have no evidence to see that exists. When trans people say, I have gender X, we have lots of evidence to suggest that people have gender identities. That is not the same thing at all. You are making a false equivocation.
I want to say something. So Matt, you say something and then I want to say something. But go ahead, Matt. You're off mute.
You've had 95% of the talking. Why don't you just have the rest of it?
All right, goodbye.
And
you want to cry like a little whiny ass bitch? Get it gone.
It's like I'm gonna like. Okay, fine. You can listen to me this way. The difference is that trans people actually have to go through a massive amount of scrutiny just to exist in the world right now. A lot of times we need psychologists to tell us that we're okay to be who we are. We've been diagnosed with DSM-4 saying we have mental disorders. Trans people have a higher burden of proof to exist in the real world than a religious person saying, I've been baptized, I'm religious. The level of burden that trans people have to say that they're not, we just accept trans people is complete bullshit, because we have been more studied by every medical institution in the world than religious people have been. Okay, like you can't study a religious person to say, oh my gosh, their belief and faith in God is something that we can externally read in a measurement, but trans people have to do that just to say, I'm a fucking girl, and you have to do it for years sometimes before you're even given one fucking pill to be able to feel better about yourself. So the idea that we're not being skeptical, we are, the second we open our mouths to say that we are a gender that is different from our ones assigned at birth, immediately skepticism is just piled upon you, and you have to have so much evidence, so much burden of proof. You know how many people I've had to say, well, you know, if you're a trans woman, when did you start feeling that? Did you feel that at a young age? If you didn't, then therefore you're not really trans, are you? There is so many questions that's thrown at you from the claim that you're trans than any other claim I've ever had in my life, even more than my veganism, more than my bisexuality, more than anything else in my entire existence, and my question about my transness than anything else.
Yeah, it's what bothers me is it's one thing to be like, oh, well, I don't have access to your mind, so how do I know that any claim about your personal experience is legit? That is totally fair, but then you are forced necessarily to start questioning everything that somebody claims about themselves. What color they like? Did they really like that movie? Are they really in pain right now? You are forced to question people's internal experience about everything, but that's not what Matt's doing. even after pointing out how we have these complex models that actually show that the population of trans people absolutely exists and that we can even predict how successful treatment is going to be, he still wants to pretend that it's the same thing as a religious claim. It's obviously not. If that's true, then you have to necessarily think that to be hungry or to think that something's funny or to be in a good mood is also a religious claim. And we know that's stupid because we know that people like food. We know that people like movies. We know that people get hungry. We know that people get sad. And we know that all of these other things can relate to that and can help alleviate that or can make you have, nice brain stuff. The fact that a Christian, when they're praying to God, might have some chemicals in their brain is not the same thing as what I'm talking about with gender existing within the brain.
Yeah, and it's like observation over time. You'll be able to know if somebody's saying that I'm gay, I'm gay, I'm gay, and they're not really gay, and then they go to a gay bar and somebody hits on them and they've never had any gay experience. What, like, it's like eventually it's going to come out. Like, it's like the whole reality of how we exist is so demonstrated, and the fact of the matter is, like, could you imagine if it was therapeutic where, like, you go see a psychiatrist and then they say, "Oh, I think I'm actually, trans. I don't," and the psychiatrist is like, "Prove it." Like, what?
Yeah.
Like that would be so disingenuous. It would be so effed up, and that would be akin to a form of it's like, no, you don't need to prove that you're trans. The fact that you're saying you're trans is already such a level of difference between a cis person, because a cis person doesn't say they're trans, right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen likely.
It's the same as when you're talking about talking to a psychiatrist. When I go to a psychiatrist and I say I'm feeling depressed, they don't say prove it. You might have to take a test battery, but you could lie on the test. You could be lying to try to access drugs. Not like depression drugs get you high, but you could do that if you wanted to. But the reality is that when most people are saying, I'm depressed, I have a gender, I like this movie, we're talking about our external state. Or our internal state, I mean. And we just assume that people are being honest about their internal state most of the time. Could they be lying? Of course. But it doesn't mean it's a religious claim because they could be lying. You would necessarily, again, have to think that any claim about someone's internal state was similar to a religious claim at that point. And nobody obviously
It doesn't make sense.
That.
It's like the church of gender. Like, it's like the religion of gender. Like, what? Like,
the only thing I want to add
doesn't make any sense.
Is if you say things that are objectionable and not true, and I thoroughly point out the problem with it, and the only thing you have to respond to that is, well, I haven't gotten to talk enough, do not call my show. I'm not here to cater to your feelings. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to be liked by the audience. I'm not here to be lauded as a nice, patient person. I'm here to talk about the facts. And if you don't like the facts and how they conflict with the claim that you're making, that gender is a religious claim, that's not my fucking problem. So either be ready to have the conversation or don't call. I'm not interested in catering to you don't get to talk enough. This isn't a platform for you to preach what you believe. This is a platform to have discussions about what the facts are surrounding trans issues. You said something untrue. I addressed it. It's not my problem if you don't like it.
And also, Arden, the fact is he never addressed your claim about the internal sense of the external versus the internal and all of the proven fact. It's like immediately jumping to another point. It's like, if you want to talk and actually have a debate and a conversation, address the point that is given. And if you're not, and you're just going to jump around and say that we are more skeptical about this than we are about this, you're no longer engaging with the point. It's like you're trying to say, but you do this over here and you do this over here. We literally explained why.
Right. Exactly.
Like, listen to us. Just listen, and then you can actually have a discussion with us.
Yeah. Also, to Brian G., it's still a delusion to believe you're in the wrong body. Nobody thinks we're actually in the wrong body. That's a fucking metaphor. I'm sorry that your reading comprehension is so fucking poor that you don't understand what a metaphor is. But again, stupid people gonna stupid. So we have one caller left on the line.
And Arden, I just want to address that real quick about the wrong body thing. Sure. You know why trans people had to start saying that? Because people couldn't figure it out and believe who we said we are. So we use dumbass language just to try to make you understand on a freaking 5-year-old level to understand that we are saying that we are not what you're telling me to be. And that's why people say it's delusional. That's why we had to use that language. But guess what? We all grew up. And we grew up and we're like, you know what? Actually, we're just who we say we are. So fuck you. Like, we're not this, oh my God, we're just floating in our different body. And I just want to be Jennifer Lopez. I feel like I should be Jennifer. No, that's not how it works. It's not how it works.
It's so frustrating.
Just say who we are. Stop trying to prescribe us who we are. We are trying to tell you who we are. And we have to use dumb language to try to get people that are so thick to understand it.
Yeah. I saw people saying, oh, we're not going to think that. I appreciate about me being mean. I appreciate that. Most of the people who are actively in the live chat don't think that, but I get comments on every show, almost every time I'm on, talking about how mean and terrible I am. So I don't care if people think that, genuinely, but I'm just pointing out that I get that comment a lot. Anyway, last caller of the day. Thank you for waiting so long, Finn. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for waiting so long, Finn. Finn, he, him from Germany. Give us your question, please.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, we hear you great.
Awesome. Yeah, so I did want to call in to talk about gender abolition. It is personally a position I hold to. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any point to have gender at this point, and we should just segregate everyone by sex, probably.
Okay, I don't... interesting. I've never heard a gender abolitionist say we should segregate people by sex. That seems to be pretty heavily a gendered position, but... oh man, I really want to hone down on that.
How? Explain that. Expound on that, please. That sounds like a fallacy.
So wait.
Please name the fallacy. Hold on. If you're going to accuse me of a fallacy, I want to know what fallacy you think that is.
I think I may have missed something. Can I ask for a clarification before we get to the fallacy piece? So, Finn, are you saying that the difference between sex and gender is at fault, so therefore just get rid of gender and go back to just seeing sex again? Is that what you're saying? Just for my clarification.
Well, I think obviously no one can agree in society what gender is. No, and we'll never agree. Obviously, unless you think
it's not true.
No, we don't have 100%. We don't have a consensus in society.
We don't have 100% consensus about anything in society.
Yeah. So Finn, I just want to.
We have consensus. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's like because I just want to just clarify the fact that you say you're a gender abolitionist. Have you looked up what gender abolitionist actually means with the societal consensus of what that actually stands for? Because you realize that you're using societal consensus, but you're using gender abolitionist in a different way than most people do that?
No, I would. I know how this word is used. I mean, I would agree with people on the far left with who are gender abolitionists, and this is how I understand the term to be used.
But gender abolitionists don't believe that we should just separate everybody by the sex category, though.
Well, that's an extra belief that I have. But
yeah, so therefore,
gender abolition.
So that's not a gender abolitionist belief, though. That's you having a biological essentialist belief.
That's biological essentialism masquerading as gender abolitionist. So you're actually a biological essentialist.
Interesting. Well, no, I'm willing to drop the sex part. First and foremost, I believe we should drop all concept of gender. So if I'm forced to then have agender restrooms where everyone just goes in and shares everything, then I guess that's where I stand. Is that where you guys would stand?
So listen, I appreciate what gender abolition was trying to do, and I agree with like the principles of gender abolitionism, the notion that gender roles and stereotypes are largely just burdening people, and that the most ethical thing to do would be to completely liberate people from the expectations of gender altogether. totally on board for that. I view gender abolitionism much like I view socialism, which is this is a really nice flowery idea and a good guiding principle to bring us towards a more equitable future. However, we live in the real world where enforcing a law where all people have to use a gender neutral bathroom is not possible. I live in the real world where unburdening people of the expectations of gender as like gender stereotypes and roles is not possible overnight. Generally speaking, I agree with the notions of gender abolitionism, and I think it's a good guiding principle, but I don't think it's realistic at all to think that we can just snap our fingers and enforce gender abolitionism.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we actually disagree on much. I did want to go back to something that was mentioned in the last call, if that's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, so you guys were basically justifying how you are different than religious people like me who say, you know, we have the Holy Spirit speaking to us, so that's how we verify our relationship with Jesus. You guys, on the other hand, say we have our personal experience, which therefore that lets us know we're trans.
Yeah, so I'm going to stop you right now.
So you guys also have the science.
I'm going to stop you right now and mute you because you're clearly getting into your trolley voice. So I'd rather you just drop the baba booey and fuck off than do whatever bullshit this is. But the difference is when you say, I have a feeling of Jesus, and that verifies my relationship with him, that is necessarily making a claim about reality that Jesus exists. The only thing that I'm claiming when I say I'm a woman is that I have a gender identity, which we have bodies of evidence to support. So you can continue with your crying about how this is the same thing as me saying I have a relationship with Jesus, but it's not. You would have to necessarily assume that all elements of personal experience are religious claims, which is absurd. No one holds to that. I'll take you off mute now if you would like to try to have a more calm conversation, but I really don't have any trust in you, Finn, to be anything other than a fucking troll at this point.
Sorry, I feel that way, Arden, but no. So if we didn't, I agree that we have a large body of scientific experience, of scientific proof behind what transgenderism is. But if I'm saying if that did not exist, would you still be transgender?
Yeah, wait, hold on 1 second. Let me start there. Let me get in on this, Arden. Like,
go for it.
Okay, so the fact of the matter is you're creating a hypothetical of if transgender didn't exist, would you be transgender? But the reality is it does exist, so we are transgender. Does that make sense? It's kind of strange to like start with the hypothetical of something that doesn't exist that we are. Does that make sense?
No.
Because we are trans.
Finn, are you right or left-handed?
You're
Finn?
dodging the question.
Are you right or left-handed, Finn?
I'm ambidextrous.
Which hand do you normally write with?
I'm non-binary when it comes to that.
Oh, Finn, shut the fuck up. Go away.
Oh my god.
You're a troll. God. I have no interest in having a conversation with you. You are not a serious person. Even if even if you actually actively use each hand 50% of the time, you know what I'm trying to ask. You're evading it because you know the consequences of where we're going to go with that. I'm not interested.
It's like telling me that I wasn't answering the question and then immediately avoiding a simple question like, what hand do you write with? Like, come on.
It's like asking if you were right-handed. It's like asking if right-handedism didn't exist, would you still write with your right hand? It's an absurdist question. Finn is not a serious person. Actually, hold on, let me bring this up. Oh, I lost it. I was gonna ban Finn from the show because Finn is a fucking troll and not a serious person. He's called into other shows before. Yes. So
and the thing is, like, he immediately was like a theist. He was like a theist about it. And then, like, you know, what I wanted to ask as well, but Finn's too much of a coward to be able to engage in questions such as right or left. What I was gonna say is like, oh, so are you saying that your religious dogma agrees that trans people should exist then? So if you're comparing your God claim that Jesus is real, so therefore you would believe that trans people are real and trans women are women, right? Because if you're going to play that game, let's go ahead and reverse Uno card right back at you, because your religious dogma fucking says, oh, I don't exist. I'm an abomination. So therefore I'm a man and for always a man. But yet you say, oh, but I say there's a God and you say you're trans. So therefore you're trans. No, you would never say that I'm a woman. So therefore I will never say that you believe in your effing God and it exists. So why are you going to try to sit here and tell me that I have the same belief set as you, and then immediately probably turn around and say, oh, well, I don't believe that trans women are women. So fuck you then.
Yeah.
Like, really?
It's
come on.
It's so wild to me that he could say religious people have the experience of, a religious experience, and that's how we know that we have a relationship with Jesus. And that's the same as when a person says, I have a gender identity. How that is not obviously on its face, nothing at all similar. You're making a claim that a person who allegedly existed 2,000 years ago still kind of exists, and you have a relationship with him, even though he's never spoken back to you, is on the same footing as I have a gender identity. No, it's so detached from the facts, the things that are accepted by every major medical organization within the US. It is absurd.
But Arden, if that whole body of evidence didn't exist, would you still be trans? Like, what the fuck was that? Like,
the thing
it's like
to ask the good faith, to ask like the Steelman good faith version of his question, which is, if there wasn't the body of evidence, I would still present the way I do. I think that my journey to self-love would still include almost all of the exact same things, right? I would still find that growing my hair out was good for me, and that getting facial hair removal was good for me. I might not have used the same language to describe it, but that doesn't mean that doesn't in any way prove your point at all. So it's completely irrelevant.
It's trans people exist, and your God doesn't have any demonstrable evidence that he does. Like, they're not the same thing. Am I some deity? Are we a deity? Are trans people deities?
Yeah.
Is that what I learned today? That we're like semi like gods in the world, and therefore our existence as the goddesses we are proves their religious claims? I mean, if they're gonna say we're goddesses, then fine, I guess.
Somebody said I say Jesus like a Southern pastor. Well, I didn't go to church in the South, but I will say I was in a very charismatic evangelical church, and the force of Jesus was definitely spoken about a lot in my day. But we are moving on to super chats. Go ahead, give your
Lit by the Holy Spirit.
Yes. Any super chat of $5 or more, we'll read out live on air. But go ahead.
$4.99 from Jeff Salone at Team Katy Montgomerie.
Katie isn't even here.
Yeah,
I'll pass it along, though.
I know.
I haven't talked to her in a little bit. I need to reach out and see how she's doing. We've got 100 Sex from Valdegast. If you make a show specifically for non-binary people, should be called Theys of Our Lives or We're It. Nice. I like that.
$10 from William Mattis. Any suggestions on protecting yourself with someone getting into sneak work? I'm asexual, but I'm considering it as a source of income. Nobody wants to hire me.
I would say I am not currently actively doing snack work because hopefully everyone knows that this is code for adult entertainment work.
I didn't know that. I thought it was actually snakes.
Nope, we're not talking about snakes. I don't think. I would say be very careful. There is the burden that comes with continually appealing and presenting yourself for the male gaze. And listen, I understand. Do queer people watch porn? Absolutely. Should porn be more oriented towards queer relationships and better representative of what we actually go through? Absolutely. But if you want it to make money, to have a profitable source of income, if you think you're going to be doing anything other than appealing to the transphobic cis male gaze, you're mistaken. And I would heavily consider the burden that will take on you mentally. It can be worth it. And sometimes it's so lucrative that I'm like, hey, look, it sucks, but it's better. I'm making money, so, whatever. I'm currently on quite a long hiatus from it because of the mental burden that it was putting on me. We can have feminist discussions about the problems with porn in general, but I think that's a little bit besides the point. So yes, I would highly caution against thinking that it's gonna be easy and fun and that it's just gonna be like just do a little sexy stuff on camera once a week. It's gonna be mentally more taxing than you really think.
And don't forget, Project 2025 wants to outlaw porn across the country.
Yes.
Like straight up. $5 from Madeline. Go Team Josie. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. I appreciate the Team Josie as well. $10 from William Mattis again. Ever since I was 16 and got serious with my political beliefs, I've been an equality voter. I stand for equality for women, the LGBTQIA plus people, and such. That's my issue. So now, blue no matter who. I'm right there with you.
Right there with you.
Yep, that is my motivation. We also have a lot of super chats today, so people have been very generous.
Thank you. We do. Yeah, we got spicy. People like the spice. $9.99 from Alice Rosas. As a trans Houstonian with the severe hurricane weather-related trauma, the future feels more bleak than ever. This show is at least something I have to look forward to. Oh, I hope you stay safe.
Yeah,
I know it's going to be a hard one.
Yeah, it's oh god, I'm coughing. I'm still recovering from COVID, by the way. I had COVID in the last 2 weeks. It's been rough, so I'm muting to cough regularly. 5 pounds from Darren Lacey says YouTube appropriate. Thank you. I appreciate you staying YouTube appropriate.
Yeah. Make sure you like, subscribe if you haven't already.
That's right.
20 pounds from Jackie Greenland. It's been nice here not to have been the subject of some member of the government's daily rants this week. I don't like the party that won, but at least the right party's lost. Hope your elections go the same way later this year. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that the UK elections went the way that it did. Of course, it could always be better, but yeah, I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah, I totally resonate
Gives me
with
hope.
I don't like the party that won, but at least the right party's lost. You know, it's hard to find the positives, but we're out here trying.
Yeah, we're trying.
Another 5 from William Mattis. Personally, I only want bottom surgery, not top surgery. I just don't want my dongle. I find it useless, convenient but useless. That's a funny
I feel
way to think
that.
about
I
it.
know. I think about the dongle as the way it's like, 3 out of 5 wouldn't recommend. Handy at camping, but more annoying than it's worth.
Oh my god, we've got so many supers coming in really fast. We've got this one's you.
Oh, $4.99 from Sarah Wilson. I like quoting Mr. Incredible's "You're not affiliated with me" line when using LGBT plus are accused of being PDF files. I agree.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Sure. It's a good one.
They are not associated with us.
That's right.
$9.99 from Stacy N. Josie, you always give me hope with your terminal positivity.
I try.
I appreciate that too.
$10 from Alyssa Nguyen. I've heard that if men cheat at sports by calling themselves women, Lance Armstrong would have already done it. Also, that's good.
That's good.
Good burn. I like that. Also, I regret the rate for transition is comparable to that of winning the lottery. Yeah, I agree. And Alyssa, do you recognize this? Do you recognize this? Huh? Oh, look at that.
Oh my gosh.
Plant drill team. Oh my gosh. I put it on my shelf. Oh my gosh, I'm becoming such a tool.
$9.99 from MC Fractal. Nearly 12 weeks, finally on estradiol. Feeling much cuter than before. It's even quieted my bottom dysphoria, which is nice. That's really good. It's amazing
that is great.
How much hormones can make you feel balanced again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still remember when I got balanced. Feels nice. $5 from William Mattis. Brian Mood, congratulations on your journey. Don't stop believing. Don't stop believing.
Yeah. How can you not do journey with those 3 words together?
I know.
It's too iconic. $4.99 from Clay Corbin. Cis woman transition to trans man. Does that transition reinforce gender binary optima? Not trying to be transphobic, just trying to learn. So, it depends on the individual. Does the individual like traditional masculinity? Then maybe there's an argument that individual reinforces some degree of gender binary. But the fact is, we live in a world, in a culture that has a binary gender that we've been living in for quite a while. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable that trans people would do this. I also find this question really annoying. I'm a huge fan of The Bachelor, right? I'm going to make this related, trust me. People are always like, oh, trans people are reinforcing the gender binary. Okay, trans people are more likely to be diverse in our gender expression than anyone else. But do you know who's reinforcing the gender binary? Cis people. Every fucking day. Watch the Bachelor or The Bachelorette. They're always like, oh, I just like doing this because it makes me feel like a woman. That's reinforcing the gender binary, but no one's talking about The Bachelorette. It's always, why are trans people such a problem? I appreciate you're not trying to be transphobic, you're just trying to learn. I appreciate that. I'm just trying to point out my frustration with this question.
I know, and it's like, we know in society that gender is a bimodal curve. It's like, more like it's just how it is. But now we're starting to get to a point where it's starting to level off. So again, it's like, so nobody gets annoyed about cis people being binary. Nobody should get annoyed about trans people being binary. But remember, trans people are more likely to be everything in between as well.
Yeah, and as well, because even the most binary trans person is already so transgressive to what culture normally thinks is like the gender binary that like I almost fundamentally don't know if I believe that even binary trans people are like reinforcing the binary. Like, because I have long hair, bitch, people call me a man on the internet every fucking day. Like, despite my long hair, it is clearly not reinforced anything for everybody. Like, it's so weird.
But thank you for the question anyway.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. $10 from Adrian Morgan. Happy Thursday. Just a friendly reminder that forced genital surgery does happen to intersex kids medically abused by the system. It is important for us to fight for them to intersex rights. Absolutely. 100%.
Absolutely. This is why also like abortion is so tied into the advocacy for trans rights. We're talking about like autonomy fundamentally here, right? Your right to know what is best for you and to make that decision.
Yep. Wait, this is you.
Yeah, sorry. $5 from Skeptoidius. A former coworker said gender is made up, so they shouldn't have to respect people's pronouns. I pointed out that race is also made up, so people. This is one of two. So people shouldn't have to respect your desire to not be called racist things. He did not like this. Yeah, it's a stupid argument that he clearly put no thought into at all. If you think about it for like 5 seconds, you realize why it doesn't make any fucking sense. So it's just
and also thinking. Pronouns. And again, the thing is, they're also conflating pronouns with gender. Pronouns are not gender. I have to tell that to cis people all the time. Pronouns are just language that we use to help express our gender identity. And that's what it is. It's gender expression. And so therefore, do we just say, oh, dresses are made up because somebody made up a dress, so dresses aren't real, so therefore I'm not going to like respect dresses? It just makes no sense. It's just language. And it's like every word is made up then at that point.
Yeah.
$5 from BC West 619. Thank you again, Josie and Arden, for talking through my gender fluid exploration. And thanks to everyone in chat who offered love and support. Oh, you're welcome, Brian.
Yes,
I'm so happy for you.
Also, thank you to chat for being so loving as well. God, I don't know why my throat is killing me all of a sudden. All right. We have got $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. I love women with swinging ideas and a voluptuous brain. Shake them thoughts, ladies. Can't hang out and chat due to work, but great show. Best Jack's team. Thank you so much, Monkey. I appreciate you.
Thank you. $5 from Haley Granger. Missed most of the show, and I'll have to catch up later. I love Josie, Lux, and Dr. Ben, but I have missed Arden. Hope you are feeling better.
Thank you. I appreciate it. yeah, I definitely, I'm already exhausted with people. I don't know why people think like being a YouTuber is fun or doing this is fun. Like, I do this because I have this like neurological thing, and I don't know what it is, but when I see people making bad arguments, I feel compelled to get in the ring and make the correct arguments, because I'm like, no, you can't talk like that. I watched this gay doctor trans advocate on fucking Dr. Mike, and I thought a lot of his arguments are really bad, and it stressed me out, and I'm like, oh, that's the kind of shit that motivates me to get in the ring here, right? I don't do this because it's fun or because I like it. I do it because I feel compelled to. And it gets hard for me sometimes, because like when we're looking at the political landscape,
I do all of the above.
What things are
I
doing.
love it.
I'm glad you like it. I think
Give
a
it
lot
to
of
me
people
every
do.
day.
There are elements that I like about it. I like hanging out with Josie, and I like hanging out with all my smart, awesome friends, Lex and Dr. Ben and Katy, and in addressing these things. But it's frustrating to look at arguments that seem so trivially silly to me, and to have them come up week after week after week after week, and to be like, I have to go justify myself to some stupid cis man who couldn't take 5 seconds to just think about this. And it's just like, yeah, but I heard it and it's convincing to me. It's like, if you thought for a second you would see the problem with this, but I have to now spend my time and my energy, justifying this because people like you vote. And I don't want you to vote away my right to have access to society. And so it's,
You mean you didn't like getting mansplained what gender abolition was in a biological essentialist lens?
Yeah, this guy, he's such a fucking troll. I don't even believe he's a gender abolitionist. He's just a fucking total ridiculous time waster.
Of course, I just poked you exactly where you're like, eat this. I'm like, this? You ate that?
Yeah, no, that's it. That is what I hate. But I do like the jokes and the debate, so,
Yes, of course. $10 from Peter Scraggs here. Well, I'm glad you're here.
Yes,
you're present.
Peter.
Thank you for saying hi on the roll call. Appreciate that.
Another $5 from Haley. Here's another $5 for me and Arden and Spicy Josie together. Love it. Thank you. Listen, I told you guys, I'm not always here to be your best friend. I'm here to defend the truth about trans stuff, and if that means people think I'm mean, then so be it. I genuinely don't care if people want to cast me.
It's okay, as long as you let me jump in on the spice, you can't just be seasoning it all by yourself. Like, let me in here. I'm in here too. I'm in this kitchen. Let me throw some fire.
I totally get that. I definitely need to be more conscious of that. I think my problem is that I get down a line of argument and I see the conclusion if I can get all the right questions out, but you're here too. I can't just think in that way. So it's hard because I try to be like, if I can hammer down this question, it'll totally expose this thing. But it's hard because you're here too, and I want you to be able to share your thoughts and get in on that. And for all I know, you could be taking it into a direction that would do an even better job of exposing the thing. I get like so locked into like, no, I need to finish this argument. But I appreciate
see, we need to let your spices marinate sometimes, and let me throw in some new spices, and then we got this great meal. It's amazing. I love metaphors, everybody. It's not my fault. $10 from the Hedonist 75 for each host for spicy badassery. Keep it kicking ass, ladies. Thank you.
Thanks, Hedonist. I appreciate it. $5 from William Mattis again. Praise the Lord Jesus. Yes.
Jesus. Thank you,
cheese. Cheese is more deserving of worship than any Abrahamic god ever proposed.
No, disagree. Very
so
scary.
Good. So tasty. Just pour it on my face.
11 from Panda. People are exhausting. I hope you ladies and all the other lovely people here a great rest of the night. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Also, with regard to you getting your point in, this is why people complain in the chat all the time when hosts steamroll other hosts. But I'm telling you, in this sort of show, you gotta be able to bulldoze someone over like that, right? I want you guys to bulldoze me because that's what needs to happen sometimes. And like,
and I will. It's like, and I just want to just say for the record, me and Arden are like sisters.
Yeah.
All right.
People were
we
so
love
bad
each
last
other.
time.
We will fucking die for each other, okay? Like, so
last time people
like,
were
this is
so
how it
mad
works.
because I tried to push the conversation along. They were like, wow, shouting down your host, Arden? They're just so mean. Why are you even here anymore if you're gonna be like that? And I'm like, oh my god, Josie doesn't even feel that way. Like, shut the fuck up. Crybabies.
Yeah, we talked afterward. We had a good time. We laughed. It was like, come on. It's like, we love each other. It's fine.
I still have more thoughts on that topic, but I don't even want to open the can of worms because last time the reaction from our audience was so poor. I think it has to be in a separate thing. I don't know if it should be on this show, but I would endorse a conversation on it happening somewhere.
Hey, maybe, would be a cool format is like in the place of a call, it's like Josie Arden spar time, and then we just go at it for like.
I will say one thing I should correct is that this is the only part of my position that has changed at all. To say that it wasn't, that hormones were a candidate explanation for the individual symptoms, not for calling it a period. I still object to that heavily. But for the individual symptoms like cramping or like moodiness, hormones can definitely be a candidate explanation. My problem was when we're talking about a constellation of symptoms that it seems poorly defined, to me to say that there is any candidate explanation feels problematic. But that is the only thing that I will touch on. I'm probably opening a can of worms that I'm going to regret, but
No, it's okay. We'll open it up next time. Okay. Next time when we're together. Did we skip one?
Oh wait, we didn't read that one. I'm sorry. I talked over it.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. I think it's your
okay.
Anyway.
$10 from Aaliyah Silverbow. A little laughter or cringe is needed after all the transphobe calls. This morning I was standing naked in front of a mirror and I thought, I'm going to get kicked out of this IKEA. Nice.
I like that. That's fun. Thank you. It's also a really good D&D name. Alyssa Silverbow. It's like,
for sure.
I was like, come on.
You are like an elven goddess for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. $6.99 Canadian from Dustin Quigley. Accepting a Christian's identity is not faith-based, nor is trans identity. It claims about external reality requires evidence. # Team Arden. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, the problem is when somebody like that last caller, whose name I've already forgotten because who cares? He wasn't just claiming a Christian identity, right? If somebody says, I am a Christian, I accept that wholesale. They could be lying, but like I don't care if somebody says they're a Christian. They're probably being honest about that. The problem is when you say, I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ from my religious experience. That's where you are making a claim about reality that needs justification, that is outside of, I personally know that I believe I'm a Christian. Like that is a totally different claim, right?
Yeah.
One of them does
because
not require.
then people use that claim to oppress others too on top of that, which is like that's where things start getting really, really gross.
Cookies. I didn't forget Matt. Okay, Matt was saying that, but it was the other caller that was after Matt that I was talking about. Finn. Who also, by the way, when I read his call notes, I was like, oh, this is probably a pro-trans person that's just kind of like wants to have a conversation. That's fun.
I know. I noticed that you did that.
But he was crying in the chat that he had to wait. And now I'm like, motherfucker. Whenever the people like that are crying in chat, it pisses me off so bad. The entitlement, like, this show is a queue. You have to wait in a queue. What fucking, like, it's only a entitled cis man that ever has this, I shouldn't have to wait because I have an interesting topic mindset.
You shouldn't have to wait the troll.
Like,
I shouldn't wait the troll. You know? No, you wait the troll. That's what happens.
Yes.
This one too.
$10 from Peter Skaggs. Get Matt something pretty with this. Thank you. I will get him an energy drink that he likes.
Like, wait, which Matt? The one that was the asshole?
No,
kidding.
My Matt. I think that's
I know.
Okay.
I know. I'm joking. $5 New Zealand monies from Kiwi Burb. Please join a union if you are going into adult entertainment. Agreed. If you have the access to that.
Yeah.
It's just harder.
Problem.
In America, it's tough.
yeah, it's already difficult enough in America. There aren't a lot of good ones for the trans, like specific organizations that I'm aware of. And I have to, I had a good experience when I was filming professional stuff. The person who filmed everything, the director, outstanding person, love him. He regularly is in chat. Mo is a great human being. I have a problem with the contracts that they have us sign where they get to use our face in perpetuity, right? They give you some big check, $600, $1,000, $2,000. Sounds really nice when you're like, wow, like 4 hours of work and I get like $1,200. That's a lot. That's so nice. The problem is they get to continue using your face in perpetuity and making money off your face in perpetuity. They make way more than you actually get for that hour. I have significant problems with the current structure of the industry, and that was another reason why I kind of stopped, because I was like, $600 sounds really nice for one quick shoot. Sounds great. But then when I realized how they're going to use that, and for how long they're going to use that, and how much money they make off of that, $600, all of a sudden, you realize you're getting fucking ripped off. And
yeah,
it's super immoral. And that was one of the higher paying companies, too, that I was able to find in the industry for trans people anyway. Some cis women in like the top industries make way more than that, but it's
sure.
Yeah, I have a lot of problems with even. I don't know that a union is going to help you in this industry, unfortunately, in that way. Obviously, there are protections and stuff, and that's great. I think it's better for the like crew, the film crew. The unions are actually decent because, yeah. Anyway,
but then there's also like the highly produced stuff as well. Yeah, rather than like the personal videos, I guess. $5 from Nix Hicks. My trans daughter is about to start estrogen. I would like to know the 1, 2, 3 things you think I should know. It takes time. Number one. So know that nothing's going to happen overnight. Number two. Sometimes the estrogen levels are not enough after some time, so make sure you're always ready to adjust levels. And number 3, what would you say, Arden? Would be
keep your eye out on with regard to levels. If you're finding that your levels aren't really showing up, and your testosterone is still really high, you could be experiencing what is called the first pass effect, which is when you take a pill. If you're on a pill, most people start on the pill, which is why I say this. It gets metabolized by your body in a way that converts the estrogen into an ineffective form. And so talking to your doctor about patches or injections or the pellet are some good alternatives that can help if you're struggling to get your levels where they need to be. But again, like Josie said, totally endorse. It's slow. It's going to take time. So if things aren't where you want them to be right away, trust me, slow is what gives you the best results long term. That's what we actually see in the data. So you want slow and gradual.
Female puberty takes 5 to 7 years to complete a cycle. That's another thing. So it's going to take time.
Yep.
But things will happen.
People said, does OF solve this problem? No.
No.
It's nice because you're usually managing things yourself and there is a benefit to that, but in order to actually make a living, you have to be collaborating with people, and in that instance, you're not getting the same protections that you are from a contract with a professional organization, and you're not necessarily sure that you're going to make the amount of money. I would heavily support people. I mean, you have to sign a consent form for most platforms to show that like this was all consensual, everything that happened. But it does not just magically solve the problems, and it is not you might be able to make $200 really easily off of OnlyFans, and that can be like, wow, that's so cool, very lucrative, but what does $200 get you in today's world, honestly? Like, barely a round of groceries. 5... sorry. 5 francs? I don't know what the F is. CHFs. From Enjakuro, I'm an ally, but isn't the concept of an ally also wrong for a group of people who are just people and who should not be persecuted? Is there a better word? I get what you're saying, but the minority people are always going to need support from the hegemonic class to advance our rights in society, and so that's just what we're talking about. It's not language is imperfect. We're never going to have the right words to describe all of the things the way we want to as accurately as we could, but Swiss francs, so they were francs. But I hear what you're saying. I don't really have a problem with
I agree.
ally, though.
I don't, because it allows them to know that you're safe, right? And there's just no utility outside of that. It's just like, I am a safe person. You don't have to fear me. And it's a really good shortcut to allowing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
$5 from Domestic. You two are great, but I'm wondering if Katy will ever be back.
So I don't know where Katy is, honestly. Last time I talked to her, she was pretty burnt out and she needed some time off. And so I said, you take as much time as you need. We will continue to, I mean, to be fair, this is not me trying to throw shade at Katy. I have been in charge of keeping Takis on the rails and a good part of the line on the rails because Jimmy's sick. Jimmy also is still doing a lot because Jimmy's a workaholic and he can't quit if he tried. But I've been handling a lot of the stuff that's been going on, and I also am... I struggle with that kind of stuff. It's difficult for me. So right now, Katy needs time, and she needs to just like feel good and not burnt out. And it's totally understandable. Just give her time. If she wants to come back, she will. And she might not. I don't know. She might decide that she wants to just, try to enjoy the rest of her life without having to always advocate for herself. And I think that's totally fair. I don't know where she's at. But I would encourage you guys not to I understand what you want to ask. She's been, her and I started this show together, so she's a huge part of this community. Try to give her some space and not hound her about it, because I think it's already difficult enough trying to navigate burnout. And when people are constantly like, are you coming back? Are you coming back? Are you coming back? That's not going to make her want to come back anytime sooner. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm always going to trying, I know there's big shoes to fill, and I will do my best to keep on showing up best I can.
And you guys have been amazing. I'm so glad we brought on new hosts, because we needed to do it anyway, but also it's been helping a lot as, I have my own stuff that I need to take time off from, and Katy's been struggling, so yeah. $9.99, wait, is this one me?
I don't know. I'll just do it. $9.99 from Fancy Wire. If I wasn't transitioning, I'd probably been ignored health conditions as before I started. I had stopped caring if I was alive. Faith did save me from that. Well, I'm glad you're here with us. And I'm
definitely
glad. Yeah, absolutely.
$10 from Peter Skaggs. Buy Matt something wriggly with this. Okay. I mean, he's a diabetic, so I shouldn't, but I know he does love some gummy worms, so, wriggly.
I think, wriggly, like something for the snakes.
Oh, that's true. That's true. We do regularly get each other snakes as gifts, because we're both always like, oh, I really want to do this one day, and then, it's there. Awesome.
There it is. $5 from Larry Fishman. Behold the power of cheese. Yes, a good vegan cheese can go a long way. I love this Miroko's vegan mozzarella. It's like pour on cheese. So you it comes in the bottle, it's already liquid, and you pour it on, and it's the best vegan cheese I've ever had because it has the best texture. It's it doesn't have to be solidified first. It's just liquid, and then
I think the best vegan cheeses I've had have been those types for sure. Those were definitely my preference. $5 from D27A Caitlin. The song I Wanna Rock by Twisted Sister should be reworked as I Wanna Live with the pro-trans lyrics.
Yeah,
I wanna live.
I like that.
I hate that. Yep, I feel it.
$4.99 from Dominic 06. Before we go our separate ways, please know I faithfully accept your journey. Reference with open arms. Take that any way you want it. Just please send her my love. Wheels in the sky.
Nice. I like how the last one you just gave up trying to make it a sentence, and we're like, let me just put another song in there.
Yeah.
It's good. I love Journey. Journey is such a classic. Have y'all seen the documentary of the lead singer that they have, who they just kind of like...
Oh.
Yeah, I forget what country he's from. I don't want to, like, misspeak. He's from I think it was, like, a Southeast Asian country. And he just auditioned... He made a video of himself singing. And they were like, wow, you sound exactly like... I forget the lead singer's name. And so they just plucked him out of obscurity and put him... And now he's, like, their lead singer and has been for, like, a decade. I think there was some falling out recently or something. But he's incredible. He sounds just like the lead singer. I'm like, that's impressive because not a lot of people can sound like him.
Yeah, no kidding.
$5 from Chris. Cis straight men are born into so much privilege that they walk around with so much entitlement they aren't even aware is there. Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It is
for sure
so painful sometimes, the lack of awareness that they carry when they're coming into a conversation.
$5 from Domestic. Thank you both for being here. Absolutely. Always. Happy to be here, too.
Thank you, Domestic. And that was our last super chat. So thank you, guys. Yay. This was a good show. I had a good time, and there were some really good conversations. I was a little anxious before just because I haven't been feeling well, and shit's bad. And I was like, I'm going to bring some negative energy into this fucking show. But I thought it was pretty good. I had a good time. So.
Yeah. And I do want to say this. We have hundreds of people watching us right now, and the fact we only got 7 likes on this stream is unacceptable. So if you have not hit like, 17.
Oh, 17. Yeah, wow. Go hit the like button right now, please.
Yeah.
If you don't,
come on.
I'm gonna be nice to you. And I know most of you are fucking into some kink where you want me to be mean to you, so...
You know, honestly, we will make it as bland as possible. No more spice for all of you if you do not hit like right now. Like, like that spiciness? We're gonna have bland. It's gonna be so bland. It's gonna be like mayonnaise.
Oh gosh, mayo. Oh no,
mayo. Oh no, where did that come from?
They're saying we need to refresh, but I have the on the producer side.
Let me refresh.
Oh, 258. Okay. All right.
Oh, 258.
We're doing good.
All right.
All right.
Fine.
Okay, you guys get a pass. But thank you for hitting even more people hitting it.
Yeah. Oh, it worked. I see it. It went up. Okay, good.
Right.
Good. You know how to listen. I'm happy to hear that.
Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you all. Thank you. Also, thank you to Jess for call screening. You always do such a good job. I really appreciate Jess. And thank you to all the mods. I see Calacia, Cookies, and I knew Stephanie was in here earlier, and Ilya. So thank you guys so much for all you do. We appreciate you keeping chat respectful and on top of shit. Appreciate you using the ban hammer when necessary. Yeah, Josie, you have anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, I'm always happy to be here and be a part of the show. It's the highlight of my week when I'm able to do it. I will be here next week. I won't be here the week after that because I'm going to Comic-Con. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Jealous.
I know.
That sounds like fun.
I know. And I'm going to give a VIP pass. So I get like green room privileges. So I'm just like, hell yeah, let's go.
Josie out here being all cool and important. So jealous.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, thank you everyone so much. I appreciate it. Be sure to go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/calltheline. Can get your name. It keeps getting louder when I'm holding it still. You stop that audio.
Yeah, but look at this list. It's getting longer.
Yeah,
it's so
your
long
name
now.
On that scrolling up list. And we will see you all next week.
Hey, wait, don't you cancel it. There's still more names. Okay, now you're good.
There we go. All right. Bye, everyone.